102.5.
It's Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. The name once again is Peter Banfo, and I'm going to be sitting in for your regular host, Samuel Ishen. Remember, this show is sponsored by TT Brothers, producers of Uncle T Malt and Tango Fruits, and of course, Apollonia City. Today, we are looking at a very interesting statement that was released from the presidency on Monday, to the effect that Madame Jean Mensah of the IEA had been nominated for the position of EC chair, together with 3 others. We're going to look at that. Of course, when the announcement came, there was a lot of brouhaha about it, but I guess the funeral of the late vice president occupied the minds of the major political actors in this country, and so not much has been discussed on that particular topic. We're going to have time for that this morning, and what implications there are for this country and for our future. We'd also have time to look at the Ghana's education system. Are we on the right path as far as secondary education or senior high education is concerned? Now, government has given us indication that they are going to introduce the shift system. Quite apart from that, we have the Minister for Finance who has also suggested that they are going to remove the completely free SHS program and introduce targeted payment system. Do we have a data on parents who can actually afford to pay for their awards fees? I believe that we would have time to look at all of that this morning. And is the free SHS program failing or succeeding? What do you also make at home? I'm sure you would also have time to send us your comments and your thoughts via our WhatsApp line. And of course, when we have time, we'll look at optional topics as well. We're expecting to have join us in the studio Professor Ninoy Douna. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, and Emmanuel Wilson. Emmanuel Wilson is the Director of Communications for the People's National Convention, PNC. I have been joined already in the studio by Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed. He's a former Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, and of course a former Member of Parliament for the Nantong constituency in the Northern region. Also having here with me Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., the Managing Editor of the Insight newspaper and a senior convener of the Socialist Forum of Ghana, here with me. So we will not waste time at all. Murtala, before we even come into the main issue, which is the IEA, I'll give you just a couple of minutes, not more than 5 minutes, to look at the ceremony yesterday, the funeral ceremony yesterday, and if there are any tributes for our late Vice President.
Well, let me say good morning to your good self, and of course my senior colleague here, Comrade Kwesi Pratt, and also your listening public, and of course viewing public, because we are streaming
absolutely,
live on Facebook. I think that yesterday was a reminder of a loss to the NDC, a loss to Ghana, and a loss to, if you like, religious people. I say this because the former vice president was profoundly a religious man, and it was a loss to all of us, and particularly those of us young ones who are engaged in this tumultuous business of politics, that we saw the burial of a gentleman who dedicated his entire life in serving this nation, from University of Ghana to Ministry of Finance to Bank of Ghana, and ended up in politics. But let me admit that some of us even wondered whether he was supposed to be in politics, because he did a completely different form of politicking. I believe that you would have been witnessed, or perhaps you were there when then I was the Deputy Minister for Information when government of Ghana started deporting the Chinese who were engaged in Galamsey. Remember, the Chinese government sent a high-powered delegation led by a very senior member of the Chinese government. And when he came, the vice president met him and his team. And he was furious, honestly. He was very furious. The treatment that, quote and unquote, that was meted to Chinese citizens in Ghana. And his view was that Ghana and China, we had a long-standing relationship. I mean, the relationship between Ghana and China predated even our independence. And in the view of the Chinese government at that time, actions such as the deportation of those Chinese citizens in Ghana was action that could dent, if you like, the relationship between the two countries. The way he spoke, we felt that he appeared as condescending and very furious. Those of us who were there were not happy. People felt that, you know, he spoke in a way that we're not. And clearly, if we were in the position of His Excellency Amissah-Arthur, the then Vice President, perhaps we would have acted differently. But in his usual calmness and his, you know, he allowed the man to finish, and he said, look, I can understand your frustrations, but one thing I can assure you is that the relationship between Ghana and China is something we cherish and value. And whatever we would do as a state, we would do that mindful of that relationship, but also mindful of the interests of the Ghanaian people, and suggested that the man could join the helicopter to see the destruction that the activities of such illegal mining, which was engaged mostly by foreigners in cahoot, if you like, with Ghanaians, had done to our water bodies. The man obliged, and did that. The next day, he had to apologize to the vice president and indicated that even in China, they won't tolerate that. So one lesson I got from it is that you can achieve a purpose without being confrontational. You can achieve a result in a way that is completely different from many people would have achieved same result. And for me, that was extremely encouraging. He would greet you and bow. I mean, he used to do that. He would greet you and bow. And I remember when we had the daily briefing. Of course, you were at the Flagstaff House. The daily briefing, I tell people that one of the dangerous decisions we took as a government that affected government and for which reason culminated in our defeat of the 2016 elections was our, truncating of the daily briefing. The daily briefing was very, very important. It served two purposes. One, it was an opportunity to set the agenda, because if you don't set the agenda, the media will set the agenda. Two, it was also an opportunity to state government position on policy issues and properly communicate with the Ghanaian people. And the last one was that it was an opportunity to, if you like, correct misinformation, that was being chained out there, and also to state government positions on issues that came up in our day-to-day activities as a state and as a people. For whatever reason, perhaps which I can't put out here, it was truncated. To be very honest, His Excellency the Vice President played a significant role in giving us information, particularly in the area of financing, in the area of the economy. But one thing that many people have forgotten is that you can't talk about the success story of President Mohammed's administration without giving huge credit to His Excellency, the former Vice President. Remember, he was the chairman of the Economic Management Team. We won an elections where the MPP felt that we didn't win the elections, where they took us to court. And we all know, per statistics available, how the 8 months long we spent in court affected investment. The investment community, those who would have invested in Ghana, were apprehensive of coming to invest because they didn't know what was going to happen as a result of that needless petition that the MPP indeed brought and Nanado championed. So investors were not coming. Remember, we had Dumso. Remember, we had a lot of challenges. In the eyes of all this difficulty, we bequeathed to the NPP an economy where the cedi to the dollar, even as late as January 2017, was 4.2. They have taken it from 4.2 without Dumso, without even Supreme Court, without anything. They have taken it to almost 5. We indeed handed over a country that had robust economic, prospect. The extent to which the IMF and the World Bank have all predicted that our economy was going to grow as a result of the investment in the oil sector, which was done by President Mohammed's administration, led with the chairman of the economic management team, which was His Excellency, the Vice President. Again, in the eyes of all these difficulties, we had massive infrastructure development. The economy actually grew. There were infrastructure development in the area of health, in the area of education, in the area of everything. There was a huge social development as a result of how the economy was managed, chaired by His Excellency, the Vice President. Fuel was sold at, a gallon of petrol was sold at 14 cedis. Today, the most competent managers of the economy of this country ever have taken it from 14 cedis to almost 28, 29 cedis. Oh. So you cannot talk about this success story as to how far this country has become and the success story in the area of all these things that were enumerated without giving some credit to His Excellency, the Vice President. Okay. One other thing that many people have even taken notice is that, look, he was the chairman of the Security Council, the police, and he was the police council. And the responsibility of the police to ensure that we were protected under his watch as the chairman of the police council, you observed that we Ghanaians went about their normal duties without fear or apprehension. Today, the very police officers who are supposed to provide us with protection themselves are calling and asking and begging for protection. Police officers are being killed day by day. So, I mean, if you want to talk about any tribute to His Excellency, the former Vice President, I mean, I think that these are some of the issues you would have to talk about. Okay. Let me tell you my personal, just 30 seconds, my personal encounter. You remember when I had my outburst, you remember? He spoke to me in a way that nobody spoke to me. He had the patience to listen to me, to understand the frustrations, the concerns with which I did what I did. And the way, even though he disagreed with the means and how it was communicated, he told me, but he said, look, I can understand your frustrations, but you could have done it this way. And for me, if many other people had the patience and the decency to have listened to me, perhaps they would have given same advice. So if there is anything that I can remember, I think that I will remember that from him, about him. And I think that his humility, for me, is legendary. On the tribute that everybody gave and what the widow gave, I think that is an issue of who the cap fits. Let them wear it.
All right, thank you. Ivan?
Peter.
Just briefly on the ceremony yesterday and what you also picked up.
My first is to greet my senior colleagues here, particularly Uncle Kwesi. It's been a while. And to extend greetings to your listeners and your viewers.
Okay, let me just announce that Emmanuel Wilson I was expecting you to join us. I need to let listeners know that you have now joined us. So Emmanuel Wilson is Director of Communications for the PNC.
I'm sorry for coming a bit late. That is very unusual of me. Now, having said that, yesterday we went to bury our late Vice President, Amissah-Arthur. The Saturday after his demise, I was here and I indicated that I did not have a very strong and often encounter with him when he was alive. Indeed, our path crossed just once. And so, in terms of relationship, we didn't have any strong relationship. But meeting him that once, and it was very brief, he left and has left a strong impression. And for me, yes, we say that first impression counts. I met him for just, we had an encounter for less than 2 minutes. And he was able to let me know how humble he is or he was. And for me, it is something that is very unique. People can communicate or can be with you for a longer while, maybe a year or two before you're able to really know their true self. But for him to let you know that this is me, I am a humble person, within 2 minutes, it tells you that that is truly who he is. And I've heard a lot of people giving tributes and they are quick to indicate that this man was a humble person. I want to say that the tributes that describes him as a humble person is not just a talk. it is really something that was very true. And as politicians, if there's anything we need to learn from the late Amissah-Arthur, is the fact that we should not, irrespective of the position we find ourselves in, or irrespective of the economic ladder that we find ourselves in, we should not at any given time see ourselves more human than any other person. We spoke, he shook my hand, and he bowed. And then we had just a brief conversation. And in it all, what I got was that this man doesn't even, if you don't know, if someone doesn't tell you, you won't even know that this is the vice president standing in front of you. And it was unique, very, very, very unique, you know. And so I want to share my deepest of condolence to the family, particularly the wife and the children. I am told that he had a strong relationship with his grandchildren. So the grandchildren too definitely are going to miss his absence, or they are going to miss his presence. And so I want to share with them, and then move on to share my deepest of condolence with the NDC fraternity, because they are the immediate. Then to the entire nation, because all of us have lost. But what is unique, and yesterday into today, I was wondering, maybe Uncle Kwesi can help because he's older. Is there any law that, or is it the tradition that a person needs to die? I mean, a person needs to die before he or she is honored, particularly where we need to name something after him or her. Is it something that needs to be done only after a person is dead? I am not sure, but if there is nothing like that, our culture doesn't say that, then I think it is important for us to start celebrating individuals whilst they are alive. We don't need to wait for them to die before we celebrate them.
Very well. Yesterday,
I shared with, and I could identify with the wife when the wife was talking of the fact that she's amazed at comments coming from individuals after the demise of their husband. If he is as good as we are all saying, then what prevented us from celebrating him whilst he was alive? If indeed he qualifies to have a secondary school named after him, what prevented us from doing so before he died? I mean, whilst he was alive, you know. But moving on, I think it is a lesson. The final thing that I also want us to do is that most often as a nation, we allow quality resources to go waste. It is important that Ghana Association of Writers and all the other writing bodies, you know, GAL, which I'm a member of, we should start thinking of writing the life stories of individuals. Let us get the maximum information we can get from them, document it whilst they are alive. Let's document it for future generation.
Right.
You know, if not, we will always be having a truncation of our knowledge and our past history.
Right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Wilson. How was it? Were you impressed with the organization yesterday? I mean, from Thursday through to now?
Well, I'd just like to state that yesterday presented us another opportunity to show unity in diversity. Indeed, there is no society anywhere on the planet where everybody agrees on what has to be done and everybody has the same values. As long as we live in a human society, we will continue to disagree. We will continue to be critical of each other, and so on. If it's not actuated by malice, it is okay, and it is fine. And yesterday, it was a beauty to see all the leaders of the different political parties congregate for one purpose, to pay tribute to one who has served this nation so well. It was indeed a beauty to see the pleasantries which were exchanged on this solemn occasion by people from different walks of life, people with different political and social orientation and so on. For me, that was the beauty of yesterday. Mr. Amissah-Arthur, former vice president, has served this country in many, many different capacities. In a capacity as a teaching assistant at Legon, he served as a lecturer in economics at Legon. He became deputy PNDC secretary for finance and economic planning. Eventually became deputy minister for finance and economic planning, governor of the Bank of Ghana, and vice president of the Republic. I was his friend. I mean, for many, many years, I knew him from the campus of the University of Ghana. And I do know that people have different views about his own orientation. People had different views about what he did and did not do, and so on. That is as it may be. Indeed, even if you take Jesus the Christ, people have different views about what he stood for, and so on. There are religions who do not recognize Jesus Christ as the prophet of God, and so on. They do not even recognize the virgin birth of Mary. They are atheists. There are atheists in the world, and so on. You understand? All of them help us to understand the rainbow that the world is. And I think that nothing is lost if there are divergent views, if there are different personalities with different outlooks and so on. Nothing is lost at all. Indeed, one of the strongest points of His Excellency, former Vice President, was his tolerance for other views and other perspectives. Anybody who knows him, he used to be a member of the New Democratic Movement, which described itself as a left organization. Indeed, there are others who said that it was a Marxist organization and so on. And yet, throughout his life, he was never a strict Marxist, you understand, and made room for other views other than his own and so on. So that was his hallmark, and I would have wished that this solemn ceremony yesterday reflected that quality. The other quality that I saw in him was his extreme modesty, maybe humility. It was so apparent in his life. He was so modest, it was unbelievable. And one time he told me a story, a very interesting story. He said that he had a friend, a long-standing friend that he used to visit at weekends. He had been visiting him regularly and so on. And then he became vice president. And because of the pressure of work and so on, he didn't have time to visit this good friend of his. So one day it occurred to him that he had not seen his friend for a very long time. So he told his security detail that he wanted to visit this friend of his that he hadn't seen for a long time. So finally the time arrived, and he went to his friend and found that his friend was in a very angry mood. So what has happened? So well, before he came, the security detail came to search the house, to tend chairs and so on. And the friend said, look, if your visit is going to cost me this much, I don't want to see you again. You understand? And he was so upset, so genuinely upset. He just wanted to go and see his friend as he has always seen him before he became vice president. The reality is that he had become vice president and that the state had an interest in his protection. And the state agents had behaved in a manner which had upset him so much. There's another story. Major General Kahinde Otafiri, who used to be the head of national security of Uganda, was here as part of the effort, the preparation for the 8th Pan-Africanist Congress. And we're with him in his hotel, and he had said that he wanted to have a chat with His Excellency Vice President Amissah-Arthur. So I called him and I said, oh, General Otafiri is here and he would like to see you. He said, where are you? So I told him where we were. He said, I'm coming. So I told General Otafiri that he's on his way. And General Otafiri said, it's not possible. That's the Vice President. Massa, in a matter of 25 minutes, His Excellency Pa Kwesi Amissah-Arthur arrived in the hotel, climbed the stairs and came to us in General Oteferi's room. I mean, this made a lasting impression on General Oteferi, something that he would never forget for the rest of his life. You understand? So this was the man, a very modest man, and also honest, extremely honest man. I mean, there are some people who get into political office and they forget the things that they used to do and so on. In fact, most of the time, they develop new associations and so on. One of our friends, and I hope he doesn't mind if I mention his name, I mean, Ralph Kisley-Hifford is a very good friend of all of us. I mean, I knew His Excellency at a much younger age when he was in the university and so on. And I also knew Ralph Kisley-Hifford, you know, at a different time and in different circumstances. But somehow the three of us came together. And one day, Ralph called me and said, look, his son was getting married and that he's been trying to reach His Excellency to come to the wedding and so on. It was difficult. So I said, oh, I'll try. As soon as I called, he picked. And I said, well, Binky is getting married. He said, where? And I told him. He said, I'll be there. And he showed up. I mean, that was a very simple wedding ceremony, extremely simple wedding ceremony. It was not like all those wedding ceremonies that people do crazy things and so on. Very simple, modest, and he sat with us throughout and so on. You know, so he was a very exceptional man. He believed in adopting the rational approach to things. He was not an emotional person. He was given to looking at everything dispassionately and so on. I'm sure that those of you who knew him would attest to that. He was very rational and so on. And he was a wonderful friend, you know. He was unusual also in many ways. Very, very unusual in many ways, you know. Indeed, I agree with people who say that he was not cut for national politics. As I saw him in many circumstances, and I asked myself, really? I mean, is this man a politician? Yes. And that came out of his strictness. You know, politicians normally make allowances and so on. They don't want to step on toes. You know, they find it very, very difficult, you know, to say it in black and white and so on. But he always said it in black and white, and he said it in a very comforting way, you know. And that was the man. He's gone, and I'm happy that he was given a befitting farewell. You know, he's not the type of person who attracts what they call fans and so on. You know, to some extent, even though he was in national politics, he also managed to keep to himself. You understand? Extremely. Yeah. And if you saw him at rallies, political rallies as well, you could see that he was totally out of place. You know, he could not do the jamatin and so on. I mean, he couldn't get down. You understand? He was totally out of place on political platforms and so on. So I was not expecting that his funeral would be a rousing ceremony, you know. But what happened was respectable, it was decent, and I'm happy also that the Ghanaian state, the Ghanaian society, has given him recognition, which I consider inadequate for what he has done. But it is a recognition. And I think, look, his death should bring us together rather than divide us. You cannot be in national politics at this level and get everybody to sing your praises. It's not possible. If you get involved in national politics and you get to this level, you'll be criticized, you'll be maligned. All kinds of things can happen. It is all part of the game. You understand? I think we should accept it as that. Look, many of our national leaders have been my personal close friends. Indeed, about 90% of them. I mean, President Liman was my very, very good friend. I used to visit him in the house and so on. President Akka was my very good friend and so on. I saw President John Mahama, he's my brother. You understand? President Mills was my very, very good friend and so on. Nana Akufo-Addo is my very good friend. We've eaten together, we've traveled together, we've done many things together, you understand? But it has not prevented me from disagreeing with them publicly and criticizing them sometimes severely. President Akufo used to call me his nephew. And yet, I used to criticize him very, very severely. I mean, President Nana Akufo-Addo, why? Last 2 years, 2016, when he was going to participate in this election, contest this election, and I was busily criticizing him and so on, he was in Dubai. I was speaking to him on phone. You understand? Since he became president, I've spoken to him on phone twice. Of course, that's not a mark of good friendship, you know. Twice in 2 years is not a mark of good friendship, but at least I've spoken to him twice and so on. That is how things should be. I mean, look, if you say that if you're in the same party with me, no matter what I do, you have to praise me, what society would we build? If we say that because I respect you, you know, and so on, a certain vein and so on, I should always be singing your praises and so on, we'll build a dumb society. We'll build a society which would not aim at raising standards and so on. So I want to see criticism on political platforms and so on in that vein. Alhaji Mahmood Bawumia, the vice president, when I meet him, we are very, very nice together. I mean, we went to a wedding and we're sitting on the same chair. We went to a wedding in East Legon. We're sitting on the same chair. We were chatting throughout and so on. When I was entering, his security was preventing me from getting close to where he was. And he said, what the hell? Let him come. You understand? And he directed me to sit by him and so on. It doesn't mean that when he calculates the rate of inflation and he puts a bag of cement in the basket, I shouldn't say it. You understand? When I say that you don't calculate inflation by putting bags of cement in the basket and that he was wrong, I am not saying that to demean him. I am not saying that because he's my enemy. I'm saying that because we are in a public arena where facts are important and we need to establish facts. You understand? President Mahama, when they started this compact arrangement of privatizing ECG and so on, President Mahama, I insist, is my brother. Of all the heads of state, I'm closer to him than any other. Yet, I took a public position against the privatization of the ECG. You understand? I criticized his administration so severely, even though he was my brother.
As an EPA.
Yes. You understand? When they extended these tax concessions to the mining companies and so on, I went livid. I was angry. So the fact that somebody is your friend and is in power and so on does not mean that you should follow him blindly and that you should always be singing praises and so on. You know. So let us all wish the former vice president, I hope what I'm saying makes scientific sense. If it doesn't, forgive me. Let us wish him safe journey wherever he's going. So
you want to sound like an 80s now.
No.
You are not so sure.
I'm not so sure. But let us wish him safe journey.
Well.
And let us especially wish his widow well and his family well. You know, they would miss him naturally. But we all have to realize that all of us, no matter who we are, the day will come. And when the day comes, those we leave behind must develop the fortitude to live with the loss. The day will come for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., for those wonderful words. You described them. We will now move into the topics for today's discussion, and that's to look at the new EC chairperson and those 3 others, I made it clear to you earlier that on Monday there was a release from the presidency to the effect that Madam Jane Mensah of the IEA had been nominated for the position of chair of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, and this follows the removal of the former EC chair, Madam Charlotte Mensah. Madam Charlotte, and those other fallouts, of course. Let me start with you, Emmanuel Wilson.
Well, last Monday, just around almost midday, was when all of us got the information. And when we got information, some of us thought it was just a joke, and it wasn't true. Indeed, when I communicated it to my leader, he listened to it and said, okay, that is fine. After conversing on the phone, I hung up, and then about 30 minutes or so, he called again and asked whether what I said was true. And so, and then I said, yes, Doc, it's very true. He said, really? Where did you get it from? You told me earlier, but where did... I said, well, I have seen it on social media, but I've also seen the statement signed by the Chief of Staff. Then he said, oh, okay, if there's a Chief of Staff signature to it, then it should be true. And I'm sure his surprise is just an example of most Ghanaians. Myself, I was very surprised. A lot of us were very surprised.
Why?
And you know why? On 2 grounds. One is the announcement itself, and then 2, the persons in it. Now, when Charlotte Osei was suspended or taken off, not even so, I think she's been taken off, yeah, not suspended, taken off. You recall that some of us gave our position, and our position was that if you look at our 92 Constitution, there are provisions that needs to be followed, and there are provisions that need to be in place before anyone can take off the chairperson of EC.
Right.
Unfortunately and strangely enough, the reasons that were given to us, and as we speak now, I haven't been able to get access to the committee's report. But from the communique that took off Charlotte Osei, 2 reasons were given. Indeed, one of which is the largest and has to do with incompetency, that she is incompetent. And also the communicators, particularly from the Flagstaff House, in rationalizing it, goes further to say that 1, her human relation, she is that person who cannot and couldn't carry along all the other commissioners, and for that matter, the entire commission. They go further to make reference to procurements, a particular procurement that took place, which, according to them, didn't go the way it should have gone. And so, if this is the definition of incompetency, then some of us were finding it difficult to accept the decision by the president and by the commission, the committee, to take off Charlotte Osei. And so we were still insisting that Charlotte Osei, if these are just the grounds, then there's no strong justification for taking her off. And so we were still on that position. And we were strongly telling the president that that decision should be looked again. And so all this while we were looking at it, expecting the president to have looked at the decision again. We went further when, from indications, it was getting clear that the president was not going to listen to the position of some of us. And there was an indication that individuals are being considered and all that. We went further to say that, okay, if the president is not a listening president and he will not listen to opposition positions, particularly when there seems to be some wisdom in it, and he is still bent on going along with the decision he has taken, then there should be a broader consultation. Let us ensure that we will not just, of course, the provision is so clear that the president has the prerogative to appoint and all that. But you remember when Charlotte Osei was taken, some of us criticized the manner in which she was appointed. And I remember after the PNC have made its submission, expressing our disappointment in JM, His Excellency, for not creating a platform where other views would have been taken on board. The NPP also did same. And I heard now His Excellency Akufo-Addo also chastising the former president for not expanding the scope where consultation would have been taken and involved, where we would have taken opinions from other political parties and other actors in Ghana's democracy. And so we're expecting that this time, even if the president is bent on not rescinding his decision, but he wants to appoint, he will, in the wisdom of and in the principle of consistency, he will want to create a platform where we will all be consulted. So we're looking forward to that. Besides, look, if political parties do not exist, there is no need to have an electoral commission. I mean, one of the foundations, one of the reasons why political parties or why electoral commission functions and we need electoral commission in any territory is simply because of the multi-party democracy that we are practicing. And so the key stakeholders in the activities of electoral commission have to do with political parties. And so we're expecting the president to have involved the leadership of the various political parties, should have involved the religious organizations and all other civil societies, and all other recognized organizations that have a direct stake in the workings of electoral commission. So we're looking forward to that. And I'm sure that's informed or that is what resulted in my leader exhibiting that shock and surprise. Because we were all waiting to see that we'll be involved in it. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And that's clearly the president has shown to us that he is not that president who wants to listen to people. The second reason has to do with the individuals involved. And for me, I will want to dwell more on the chairperson, who is Madam Jane Mensah. As a political party and as an individual, we have had so many occasions to work with her, work with IE. And, to have a chairperson of electoral commission, whether we are going to have a smooth election or not, it depends largely on the perception of the actors with regards to how electoral commission is. If the actors at any point have a feel that electoral commission is not representing their interests, it's a recipe for chaos. If the actors at any given point feels that the electoral commission is being biased, it's a recipe for disaster. Indeed, if you look at almost all electoral violence that we have recorded, not just in Ghana but across board, largely is influenced by the fact that a section believes that the credibility and the independency of the electoral commission, there is a question mark to it. If I have a feel that yes, we are going to have a free and fair election, and the referee is going to create a level ground for all of us to play on, there wouldn't be any reason for anyone to go against the results or to go against the processes that will lead to the final results of electoral commission. So that is one thing we need to look at. Now, Mrs. Jane Mensah, yes, she has her strength, she has her good parts and all that. No one can take it from her that as a chairperson of IE, she led her institution and then led the political parties to create or to make certain key decisions that has helped all of us in this nation. I remember very well how IEA was able to marshal leadership of all the political parties to come out with a political party's code of conduct. And we all appended our signatures to it. And indeed, it helped us. It was like a check and a balance. There are other things that has happened, not just within political parties, but it has helped the entire nation. And so you can't take that from here. But there are also some negatives which are very, very, very key we need to look at. And for which reason, I think personally that she being taken or appointed to be the chairperson of EC, we need to really have a serious look at again. In 2012, and one key is that she has exhibited on numerous occasions that she does not really believe in consensus building.
Really?
Yes. There has been so many instances where key decisions that needs to be taken by IEA and the political parties ended up being taken by IEA and Mrs. Jane Mensah only. And there has been instances where political parties have gotten angry and we've come out to even threaten, and sometimes decisions are taken. I mean, she changes their position, and sometimes too she decides to go along with it. And it is because of this that currently, as we speak, I know that my colleagues from the NDC are not in good terms with IEA, and for that matter with Jane Mensah. It is one of the key reasons has to do with this one. Now, 2012, we had a presidential debate, as we always do have, and then we went to have one in the northern region. The final one was to take place in Greater Accra here. When we got to Greater Accra, just some few days to the Greater Accra event, Jane Mensah came out publicly to announce that the one going to happen in Greater Accra, then Hassan Ayariga, who was our flag bearer, and the PNC would not be allowed to partake in it. I mean, just a unilateral decision, without the involvement of us, without giving. And when she was pushed, the reason given was that Hassan Ayariga in Tamale was coughing, and he was distracting Nana Addo, Dankwa Akufo-Addo. That was the reason.
Yeah.
That was the reason given. 2012, we were so disappointed and were so angry. And it had to take, and that I remember very well. Both the NDC and the NPP came out strongly, and they condemned it, and the NDC through Mosquito went further to indicate that if Jane Mensah can take such a decision without the consultation, not even of PNC, but of the other political parties, because they are stakeholders in it, then the NDC will not partake in the Greater Accra debates. It was at that point that Jane Mensah made a U-turn and said that, okay, the PNC will be allowed to partake in it. 2016, and all of us in this country know very well that in the 2016 election, the presidential debate didn't go well as it should have always gone. And it has its basis. Prior to 2016, all the other presidential debates that we've been having, what we do is to have a roundtable discussion, i.e. the various political parties, because it is a platform for the political parties. And so if I'm going to partake in it, or my flag bearer is going to partake in it, it is just fair and appropriate that we all discuss the modalities, and we discuss even those that we are comfortable with to be the moderators and all that. We do all that. Prior to 2016, we woke up only to hear Jane Mensah communicating, on air, through a communique or through a release, the modalities that are going to be used for the 2016 elections, when no one was part of it. We again raised serious concerns. The NDC did, the PNC did. I didn't hear the NPP doing for the 2016. But the CPP also did. And we're all against it. And we said that this is a sign of disrespect. We won't do that. When Jane Mensah was interviewed on the reaction of the political parties. The statement she made was that she is surprised the political parties have decided to go on this tangent. And as far as she is concerned, the positions of the political parties in this case can be described as very, very immature. So in other words, because she did not involve us, and we are telling her that it is just prudent to involve us, she describes all of us as immature persons. The NDC is immature, and that obviously included a flag bearer. The PNC is immature, and that obviously included a flag bearer. The MPP, immature, it included a flag bearer. And same with the CPP. That was the description given to us as a political party. And what was our crime? Our crime is that we were saying that if we are the main actors, then we should be involved in it. She did not do that. These are just the public domain one. There are so many instances where we attend in-house meetings where the media is not there. And again, you could see, or you can see Jane Mensah taking unilateral decisions and telling us that this is what IEA is comfortable with. And so this is what we should be able to do. Whether we are in agreement with it, whether we are comfortable with it or not, this is what the IEA should be. And that is, I mean, since the IEA is comfortable with it, we should go with it, you know. It's raised the issue of one, involvement. And that is one key trait of a successful electoral commission, and for that matter, electoral commissioner. If we have an electoral commission, an electoral commissioner, where we will attend an IPAC meeting, and the commissioner will come out and say that, well, this is the position of myself and that of the electoral commission. And so the positions of the various political parties do not matter. And we've seen it. You remember when the issue of the logo came, and Charlotte Mensah was, what's the name? Charlotte Osei was interviewed, and she said, well, we saw it, we like it, and we took it. That was her race, that is all. That's going to be the attitude of Jane Mensah, because that is how she has exhibited, or she has communicated with us over and over at the IEA level, you know. So we'll attend meetings, and then we'll raise issue with regards to the voters register. We'll raise issues with regards to transportation of ballot papers. We'll raise issues, pertinent issues that has to do with the process, electoral process. And we are seeing Jane Mensah saying that, well, this is the position of electoral commission. We came out with it, we are comfortable with it, and this is how we want to go about it. So that is how it's going to be. What then is going to be is that you are going to push the political parties to get to a stage where they will be doubting the fairness of the electoral commission. And as I indicated, that will be a recipe for disaster as far as electoral process and electoral violence is concerned. Okay. The other one, and that again I said is, if you listen to the commentators of coming from the Flagstaff House, the spokespersons, trying to rationale or to give definition to what the incompetency meant, is that Charlotte Osei did not have a good human relation, and for that matter, she couldn't carry along or carry with herself the other commissioners. I have said when this story came up on other platforms that I dare anyone to go to IE and go and find out the average lifespan of workers of IE. I at least from 2007, 2008, I have been with IE. I have dealt with IE to date. Go there and find out the average lifespan of workers there. If you have a relationship with any of the workers, and then you meet them outside the offices and you tell them, I was in your office, but I didn't see you. They'll tell you, oh, boss, I left the place. And you ask almost all of them, and they'll tell you that they couldn't cope with the human relation of Jane Mensah. And so if we are talking about human relation being part of what constitutes competency, per the definition of the spokespersons from the presidency, then I'm really wondering if Jane Mensah has that competency to be the chairperson for the Electoral Commission. I am really wondering if that is it. I have again indicated over and over and over, and I heard Honorable Abambagbin also making a similar thing, and I share with him perfectly, that for the purposes of we building and having stronger institutions, Jane Mensah should turn down this offer. She shouldn't take it. You know, just after the 2012 election, Jane Mensah and IEA did a research and came out with a paper, and all of us were given copies, and it had to do with all-inclusiveness. And in that research paper, the proposal that was given was that certain key institutions, appointments should not be done solely by the president. And we should create a wider platform for consultation. And we should get to even the stage where it will be based on purely merit, based on qualification, and not giving the opportunity for the president to appoint. And one of the institutions they mentioned was the security, the police, where president appoints IGP. We should look at it. The other one is the Electoral Commission. IEA and Jane Mensah did a research, or conducted a search, and came out with a paper and said that places like Electoral Commission, we should desist as a nation. In the interest of building a stronger institution, we should desist as a nation from allowing just the president to appoint the head of it. What has changed?
Is that document available?
It's available. I can make it available to you myself. Because after the search was done, the various political parties, the head offices were given copies. And so we were giving copies, and I have copy myself, you know. And so what has changed? Is it that Jane Mensah didn't believe in the search or the research that she and her institution did? These are questions that comes into mind. And you know, if we should continue on this tangent, I keep saying that this is a bad precedent. What has happened? The next time, if there should be a change of government, which I'm confident there will be, because 2020, that is one of my priority, to ensure that there's a change of government. Whether there's going to be an alliance, whatever form it is going to be, my interest is that there should be a change of government, because the NPP-led, Akufo-Addo-led government is not doing what needs to be done. And if we do not take the governance from these people, this country, the next generation will come and blame all of us, you know. And so, in conclusion, I'm saying that Jane Mensah, in the interest of we building a stronger institution, making reference to her own research paper, if she indeed is a woman of principle, then she should be seen telling Akufo-Addo that, look, we believe that one, there should be a broader consultation. I don't think this is what happened prior to you appointing me. Again, we also believe that we should allow institutions to be very strong, and changing of the leadership of these key institutions on frivolous grounds, such as that which has been championed, for which Charlotte Osei was taken. I, Jane Mensah, do not believe in it. And so on this ground, I do not wish to accept this appointment. Let Jane Mensah come out and do this. That is what we expected to do.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Wilson, for that submission. Professor Ninoy Dowona is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana who has joined us. Now, Prof, you will spend just a few minutes talking about yesterday's ceremony, the burial ceremony. Okay. Okay, so I'll come back to you since you're now getting yourself ready. Comrade Mutala, let's move on to the EC matters.
Well, I think I agree in absolucy with all the comments made by my brother, Manuel Wilson, that first and foremost, the position of the Electoral Commission is a position that in appointing someone to occupy there, you need to engage in broader consultation. Of course, it is within the democratic right of the president to engage in such appointments. But you can't have this discussion in isolation. You can't have this discussion in isolation with what happened with regards to Charlotte Osei and the position of the political party that the president is representing, and for which reason he is the president of the Republic of Ghana today. I say this because there has been some desperate attempt to compare the position of the NPP in the appointment of Charlotte Osei, reckless as it was and vindictive as that position was, with the NDC's and other political parties' position in this matter. When Mrs. Charlotte Osei was appointed, the NPP called her all sorts of names. And let no one be deceived into thinking that the name calling was done by only individuals within the NPP as a political party. Of course, political parties cannot regulate the conduct of its members at certain times, but a disciplined political party would have indeed taken steps to discipline their members who engage in such irresponsibility and recklessness. When Charlotte Osei was appointed as the head of the National Commission for Civic Education, we never heard the name calling. Nobody ever said she wasn't a Ghanaian. Nobody ever said she was a prostitute. Nobody ever said she was President Mohammed's girlfriend. And nobody ever said that she did not have the moral standing and the competence to lead that organization. As a matter of fact, they never questioned her fidelity. But the moment the woman who deserves the right of any appointment like any other citizen so qualified for any position was appointed, we heard all this. So this attempt desperately, particularly by the section of the compromised Ghanaian media, to say that everything NDC is doing and other political parties who are raising questions with regards to the appointment of Jean Mensah is red herring. Some have even gone to say that we just want to pay back what the MPB did. I want to state that the two are completely different. I don't think we have called Jean Mensah a prostitute. I don't think we have said she's a girlfriend to President Nana Addo. I don't think we have questioned her fidelity. I don't think we have questioned her moral standing in society. And I don't think that we have questioned her ability and competence to administer the affairs of the Electoral Commission. So if we haven't said all these things which the MPP said, why would someone in his wildest sense of imagination attempt to compare the position of the NDC and other political parties with the reckless position of the MPP? Now, if you argue that it was just a statement made by Kennedy Ajapong, supported by Otiko Ejaba, who, by the way, at that time, questioned the fidelity of a married woman when she was not married. Yet the clergy and the people of this country didn't see anything wrong with that. How did they think that the husband was feeling at that time? How did they think that the kids were feeling? How did they think the family of Charlotte Osei were feeling? A decent married woman whose fidelity was questioned by a woman who was not married. Yet they didn't see anything wrong with that in this country. That is the level of hypocrisy that is being demonstrated in this country every day. These were the things they raised. NDC or the other political parties haven't said that. What we have said, and we will continue to say, is that we are questioning her neutrality. The NDC and the other political parties didn't start questioning the neutrality, and the unbiasedness of this woman today. At a time when the NDC and other political parties never thought the woman could be appointed as the EC chair, they questioned her conduct. In 2008, by the way, that is the niece to the First Lady, Rebecca. That is the direct family relation. That is the family relation. Now, if in 2008, when Prof. Mills was the candidate and the flag bearer of the NDC of blessed memory, when it was apparent to everybody that the NDC had won the elections based on certified, collated and certified results, the IEA saw the need to put on their website a misleading information that was indicative of the fact that then candidate Nana Addo had won the elections. I have listened to the section of the compromised media again, who argued that no, the IEA is a research organization, a research institution, and therefore they can make projections. And I say that was not a research projections they were making. It was upon collated results, declared, certified and declared by the Electoral Commission. So it wasn't any research that the IEA conducted, for which reason they came to that conclusion. It was based on the kinds of results that were received, certified by the Electoral Commission. So this was not a projection. Now, assuming that a woman, in fact, not even assuming, if a woman of her caliber, who was leading an institution, who could put such misleading figures and information on their website, now such a woman is supposed to be a neutral arbiter in an elections that will determine the destiny of this country, that will determine how stable and united we move ahead as a people, that will determine peace and security, that will determine bread and butter, that will determine the provision of meals for ordinary Ghanaian. Now, if such a woman could do that with a private entity, assuming that that woman is given the opportunity and she engages in same, do you know the consequences of such an action to the stability and the unity and the peace of this country? So that is why people are raising this issue. And I have listened to another argument. Oh, that no, even if she has relation with the First Lady, what is wrong with that? And I said, there is everything wrong with that. When they say conflict of interest, it is not the commission of crime, but the potential, the probability of you engaging in crime or compromising because of either family or friend relations that you have. And that is why the framers of the laws themselves are concerned. And conflict of interest anywhere in the world, I'm not saying that there is a commission of a crime, but there is the tendency and the possibility of committing a crime or compromising because of a relationship you have with people who are engaged in an issue.
Or even the perception.
That's it, even the perception. Yeah. So that is the point. So for me, it's besides the point to say that is it that she's not competent? Every single thing anybody would say about Jean Mensah, with regards to her competency, with regards to what she has accomplished, same can be said about Charlotte Osai, same. But people are raising questions about her conduct. And frankly, I know people who have worked with IEA before, and all of them have indicated that she has a very terrible human relations. Condescending, disrespectful to even subordinates. Now, if you are coming to deal with political parties who come with different and varied egos, how are you going to handle such people? In 2008, when they put that misleading information on their website, it took pressure upon pressure for them to pull it off. Shamelessly, they pulled it off without seeing the need to apologize to the NDC and the people of this country. Because we were engaged in an elections that was very hot, in an election where threats were issued. Now, they didn't even see the need to do that. Now, I have listened to another argument that is made by the NPP, that yes, if NDC is citing the fact that we refused to participate in the IEA debate in 2016, what of President Kufuor refusing to participate in the IEA debate in 2004, I guess so. Yeah. And I said the two are completely different. When President Kufuor refused to participate in the IEA debate, President Kufuor never cited bias or biasness on the part of IEA, for which reason he and his party was unwilling to participate in the debate. The NDC cited the fact that the woman was biased, the woman was an MPP activist, and therefore they could not trust any action she takes with regards to that participation. So you can't compare the NDC's position on the refusal to participate in the IEA citing bias as a reason with the refusal of President Kufuor of participating in the IEA debate, in which he never, and the party never cited, if you like, bias. Now the other argument that is being made, wobbling as it appears, that yes, it was Kennedy Ajapon and Otiko Jaba and then their acting secretary who made those pronouncements. But the point is that if the MPP never sanctioned it, after those statements were made, every single decent-minded political party, civil society group and individuals in this country condemned Kennedy Ajapon and Otiko Jaba for those statements they made. The NPP never raised a finger. And as we sit today, I'm still looking forward to find out whether there was any official condemnation from the NPP as a political party on those unjustified statements that question the fidelity of a married woman, decent woman, hard-working citizen of this country. They never did that. Now, on the 20th of April 2015, President then candidate Nana Addo, in addressing students of University of Cape Coast, said, among others, that in appointing the EC chair, President Mahama needed to do broader consultation, and that all major stakeholders, in this case political parties, needed to be consulted in the appointment of the EC chair. This was President Kufuor on the specific date I have mentioned. So the President Nana Addo, then candidate Nana Addo, on University of Cape Coast campus, 20th April 2015. Now the question is, where has the principle that he espoused so eloquently gone to? Now, assuming that President Mahama didn't even consult, assuming, without admitting that he didn't. Now, you admonish President Mahama to do what you thought was the best thing to do. Why are you not engaged in that? What some of us know is that there was some consultation. Now, what is the purpose of the evolution of our democracy? Is that with time, we change certain things, we try to perfect our democratic process. That even if President Mahama didn't do what you felt was wrong, why are you then doing worse?
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, President Mahama never appointed a family relation. Jane Mensah is a family relation of your wife. President Mahama never appointed a friend. President Mahama never appointed an NDC person. You have appointed neck-deep MPP activists in the person of Jane Mensah. In fact, under her watch, the IEA was a political wing of the MPP, and they demonstrated that. And I have heard others also argue that why? Since when did the NDC realize that the IEA was a political wing or Jane Mensah was an MPP activist? Since we worked with the IEA. And after the NDC position, yes, we work with the IEA. And that is the reason why we are able to say that the woman is political, the woman is biased, the woman is an MPP activist. If we never worked with the woman, there's no way we would have known some of these issues. And I think that these are issues I thought that the president would have taken so serious. More so, even when they did the coup in booting out Charlotte Mensah. By the way, there is an injunction, there is a court case. In as much as the president cannot be enjoined from doing what he did, the last person I would expect to disrespect our courts should be the president. Why the rush? What is the fear of the president in rushing to appoint someone when he knows too well that there is a case in court? Why that rush? Couldn't the president exercise some patience that if you have nothing to hide, let it go through the processes? At the end of the day, Ghanaians will be pleased with whoever you want to appoint. But let me state this, that all these issues we are raising these issues mindful of happenings in other jurisdictions. I said this thing here and I will state it again. I have done some work on conflicts in the sub-region. And when we raise these issues, people say we are beating war drums. No, we are just cautioning. And that is why Cesaro says that if you fail to know what happened before you were born, you will always remain a child. And all this research is done. And if you ask Dr. Enian and others, they will tell you that almost all the conflicts in the sub-region, talk about Liberia, talk about Sierra Leone, talk about Ivory Coast, talk about the Maghreb, all those conflicts,
the remote causes can be traced to attempt either to disenfranchise people, deny people their right for self to be governed, and trying to impose a will on those people. Now, when you talk even about Liberia, you can't talk about Liberia without talking about how Liberia was even established in the first place. You establish it when you look at the distinction between natives and settlers, and the fact that there was a conscious effort to give power to a particular people. That is the same way this government is engaged in. Now, do you think I would want to engage in an elections where people would distrust the referee, where people would distrust the umpire? Now, what will be the consequences of that? In this country, we went into an elections where a particular political party won. We saw what President Nanado and his party did at Obra Sport. People who had JM posters on their vehicles, those vehicles were vandalized. There was an incident where a young man who was going home with his kids, he took them from school. They traumatized, broke the windscreen. The man after a year said that the son is still traumatized. This was what the NPP engaged in. Now, at the time when there was no any family relation between the EC chair and the person who was, at the time even when nobody raised any question about the political lineage of the EC chair, because Afarijan, there was no way anybody could associate Mr. Afarijan with any political party. Yet the MPP engaged in this. Now, why would the president do that? Another person who was appointed is my very good friend, Dr. Bosman. And I was happy when I listened to you. Look, Dr. Bosman cannot deny the fact that he is an MPP person. He can't deny that. If he thinks that, yes, if I'm given that responsibility, I'll be able to discharge the responsibility without any fear or favor, without any bias, that would be a different discourse. But if you engage in publishing articles or research work in which you yourself stated that research work was sanctioned by a department, and it turns out that the department was unaware, it brings to fore questions of credibility and credulity. And that is where the fear is. So I just want to make a dispassionate appeal that if I were the woman, if she had honor and dignity in her, she would say, Mr. President, thank you, I can't take this. But as long as the woman refusing to do that and has demonstrated all these things we are talking about, then it may be a recipe. I pray we don't get to that place. I pray we don't. What I would say is that all these things are done with one view of the MPP thinking that they can manage and massage the elections. And you know one funny thing? They are not interested in fulfilling the promises they made to the people of this country now. They are not interested in providing the needed jobs that they promise. They are not interested in ensuring that bread and butter is provided. Because it seems to me that they have thrown their hands in despair and thinking that based on our performance, we would lose these elections anyway. Let's find a way to rig this election. But I can assure them, they should never underestimate the resolve of the Ghanaian people to protect and defend their democratic rights to determine who leads them. If we go into the 2020 elections and Ghanaians think that with all the outright thievery that is going on under this government, with all the economic quagmire that they have subjected the people of this country to, with all the mess that they have created, the hegemonic rulership that they are trying to instill and force on our throats as a people, the division on ethnic and tribal lines, the mess, the corruption, if Ghanaians still think that with all these things they want to renew the mandate of President Nanado, so be it, and we will respect it. That should be the decision of the people of this country. But any attempt to twist the arms of the Ghanaian people to be able to get electoral victory will be resisted and resisted strongly. Because the Constitution itself enjoins us to resist any attempt to undermine rule of law, to undermine the Constitution. So we are appealing sincerely with the President that it is not too late. He should do the needful. The Council of States never attended to even the letter written to them by the President. Now, if indeed the Council of State never sat on the issue, then it means that the procedure would have been violated. Because it says that in the consultation you refer it to Council of State for approval. Long before the Council of State indeed gave this attention, you came out and made this announcement. I really don't think that it argues well for our democracy. There are people who have argued that Charlotte Osei removal should not be accepted. Some have even gone to court. Hypocritically, they sit down and say that is a very good appointment that is being done and you can't raise issues. Then why are you challenging the removal of Charlotte Osei?
Can you imagine?
And that is the level of hypocrisy. Because if I am challenging the removal of Charlotte Osei, and I know that someone went to court seeking injunction to injunct the president from appointing a new EC board, I can't turn around 36 degrees and say that, yes, I don't have any problem with the appointment. That is the level of hypocrisy. Because you think that the removal of Charlotte Osei was not fair. It wasn't right. Why do you turn around and say, okay, this appointment, I don't have any problem with it? And I think that the president must do the needful. The Council of State must do the needful. It's still not too late. If they don't, I expect the minority to boycott any vetting of these two individuals. We are not raising questions about the others. We are raising questions about people who have demonstrated open bias, against other political parties except the NPP.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Mohammed. I was just going to read again that statement from the office of the president, and it is dated 23rd July 2018. 23rd July 2018. Now it says, President Akufo-Addo nominates new chairperson and deputy chairpersons and member of the Electoral Commission. And it says the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has by letter dated Thursday 19th July 2018 sought the advice of the Council of State in accordance with Article 72, Clause 2 of the Constitution for the appointment of a new chairperson, two deputy chairpersons, and a member of the Electoral Commission. Now, the final part of that letter says, President Akufo-Addo is hopeful the Council of State will discharge its constitutional duty expeditiously to enable him make these critical appointments to this very important institution of state. So, the council was written to. There's not been any meeting, and yet this letter is out there appointing or making nominations. I mean, this is what I'm sure Murtala was talking about. Prof.
Thank you very much. And I'll add my good morning and felicitations to our numerous listeners at home and abroad. I think you gave me the permission to talk on the first point on the late Vice President.
Yes, you spend a minute or two.
Yeah, I listened to all the good commentary on the passing away of our illustrious Vice President, and I associate myself with all the compliments and tributes from Comrade Wilson Murtala and then Comrade Kwesi Pratt. My little interaction with the late Vice President, as a close, intimate one, like Comrade Wilson stated, was at the congregation of University of Mines and Technology in 2013 when he was Vice President, and he was a guest of honor. After the congregation, we joined a team to the lodge of the Vice Chancellor for lunch. And the university had arranged for a VIP session for refreshment. And the Vice President said, but already I'm in the midst of illustrious people. Why do you create another wing? And so he felt we should all be together, and then decline going into the inner chamber or the VVIP chamber. Of course, my close knowledge of him also, he came as a modest fellow. His demeanor was what was exemplified in your interaction with him, and as Comrade Kwesi Pratt said, ready to be himself and participate in anything that he felt he should do, notwithstanding his position as Vice President. You know, what I find most intriguing was the usual good things that are said or were said. And so at funeral, we always say that when anybody dies at a funeral service or a dua or anything, the pain of death is enough to wipe off the fellow's supposedly bad things that the fellow did. And so you have to rather look at the good side so that the departed soul will have a good place of rest. If you relate what was said to what was the tribute on when Professor Mills, may his soul rest in peace, died, then you can say, as the wife lamented, what will be the impact? What wasn't said about Professor Mills? Yeah. The style of governance. Everybody, let's forgive and forget, let's move on. Has that impacted on the way we are doing politics now? The prosecutions, the defamation. President Mills invited President Kufuor to Apenkwa to commission N1 and stole his initiative in getting the project on. When FPSO Nkrumah was launched, he took President Kufuor onto the rig. Didn't he do that? And President Rawlings. When President Akufo-Addo commissioned FPSO Kufuor, did he do that? No. And other projects that were initiated. So what has changed? The vilification, the invectives, innuendos are still with us. So let us hope that it will take somebody, a departure of somebody like Vice President Amissah-Arthur, to let us revise the way we do politics. And some of the issues we'll be raising about consensus building, consultation, we are already seeing that. So yesterday came and went, and like other funerals that will be taking place now, we say so. Sermons that will be preached by religious leaders or imams at whoever is being buried today, it's all to extol virtues, the way we should look at the life of the departed. But what do we see? So let's hope and pray that this will be a new chapter. Right. Now, but the main issue, if we go by the maxim that the opposition will have their say, and then the government of the day with power will have its way, perhaps you can say, well, that we are saying, we must say them to take them off our chest, but the lady will be appointed. If the president wants the lady to be appointed, they can cite the very constitution and then Act 451, the Electoral Commission Act, with the relevant provisions, whether it is consulting the Council of State, seeking the blessing of the Council of State, and then going in for Parliament, approval and swearing in at Flagstaff House. All these will be done. But then the individuals and all that had been said about them, and you can say the nominated chairperson, if she is hearing or she is listening, then it is left to her conscience to decide whether to stick on and perhaps take a new leaf and work diligently and show no bias and show fairness to bring hope in our electoral process or our journey to build a constitutional democracy. But let me digress a bit to say that we were, when I was General Secretary, we were pioneers of these political parties' interaction with the Electoral Commission, with the Institute of Economic Affairs. And if Mrs. Jim Mensah had built any credibility or any experience in the area of political party activity, it was perhaps courtesy of this. But what was the origin? It is a very law that we have, that you have an electoral commission that is an independent electoral body. But the Political Parties Act 574, even dating back to the Political Parties Law of 1992, forbids contribution from non-citizens and foreign agencies to political parties or even to the Electoral Commission. And so the Electoral Commission, vis-a-vis the funding and the financial challenges that the parties face for them to have active participation, because the very character of the Constitution is multi-party democracy. So in 2000, when we had a changeover in 2001, the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, NIMD, through some other people, Alhaji Fal, a former chairman of the party, and other people, were approached by a consultant. And they said, look, this change is unique. How will we help parties to build strong structures? The law then could not even make the Electoral Commission as a conduit to play that role, because if parties are strong, the suspicion that comes with every election will be minimized. So IEA somehow got into the fray. How they got into it, I can't tell. So political parties then represented in parliament. The NDC, the MPP then in power, NDC, CPP, and then PNC, where the parties have formed the initial group, and individual contracts were signed. And I know Kwesi Pratt, as Deputy General Secretary then, fiery Kwesi Pratt, I really became an odd figure, because it is like, if you look at the terms of the contract, then you virtually ceded your authority, because it was like a platform was to organize a party. And then CPP said no. And other parties said no, you cannot do that. Because the original intent is to help build the capacity, because elsewhere in Europe, it's the General Secretary and the Secretariat that run parties. And they felt that their contribution, the Dutch Institute, noting the law, through the IEA political parties arrangement, could help in that capacity building. So they built the General Secretary's platform and subsequently the chairperson's platform, and gave office equipment support and yearly $20,000 support for party organization and educational activities, appointing analysts, etc. Due to Haruna, Honorable, and others were all there. Late Josiah, Kwesi, what do you call Mr. Butri, what do you call it? Dan Butri, etc. You know, then it went on, so it became as if any foreign support or extra support to relieve the parties of their financial commitment, the IEA program became the main thing. And so the political parties code, the presidential parliamentary debates across the regions and in the national one, the Transition Act that later on the NDC government under Mills, Professor Mills took up and passed into law, all these were initiated by the platform. And indeed, some of us also had our personal friction or interaction with the lady. And I left the platform when I left my position as General Secretary in 2007, and others have continued. So all the issues that had come, and perhaps some of the excesses or over-enthusiasm, call them that way, and if Mrs. Jimensa became a monster, in quotes, then it was as a result of this. Going forward, we don't know how that, because the platform I learned is virtually collapsed. Exactly. Yeah. And so that is the background. And if this is the way we want to go, and you know, Peter, I have always said this, that this constitutional order in which we are now, is it the constitution that has brought us to this state? Given the backdrop of the revolution, transparency, accountability, power to the people, or we the practitioners? So all of a sudden we've removed Charlotte to say, and that is a dead matter. Procurement law became the thing that all of us know. Exactly. So whether through mischievous intent or real, or the basis was founded in law, contravention of any law that merited the removal of somebody, notwithstanding all the intentions that the MPP carried before they assumed power in 2017, is gone forever. The matter in the Supreme Court, in the same Supreme Court, and the same believers in the rule of law, matters that are there, they are going ahead to appoint her. And they will say it doesn't matter. If people have cited the case of late Professor Modibo Okran, when the matter came before the Supreme Court in this matter, that you have a petition that is not meritorious, you just threw or tore it into pieces. And we are told that the Chief Justice says that it's not in all cases that can be, but there are instances where you can go ahead. So it's done, gone and dead. So I proceed on the basis that the lady will be appointed. The 3 others will be appointed. And how do we move on? Perhaps the only ray of hope was what Kofi Adams said when you interacted with him in the course of the week, that the transparency and the level of involvement in the whole electoral process from the moment elections are called, or rather elections are called, printing of ballot papers at whichever printing press is or presses are committed, the way we get involved, the level of vigilance, all through keeping the materials to the day before the election, when materials are sent to the various constituency or district centers, and then materials for the following day's election are all placed in the box. There is a seal. We maintain our vigilance. The following morning, our agents will have to be at the polling center, what do you call it, the constituency or the district office, to accompany materials to the place of voting. And the nature of the involvement that had been agreed on at the Inter-Party Advisory Committee level, where we all make sure we are there, we see the seal with the number that the box had not been tampered with, and they remove materials, we have the register, we cross-check and do everything. Then when voting starts, we have our tally card as if we are sitting down with a cargo being removed from a container into a warehouse, and we keep ticking, we keep ticking, and then at 5 o'clock, if we don't have anybody in the queue, or we place a line and we vote, so we know that 730 people voted in this polling station. We pour off everything, we sort out, this candidate got this, we all agree this is a rejected ballot, we count the rejected, we do everything, enter, we all sign and take copies. That will be the final result. It's a law that says that is a chairperson with a presidential election, the returning officer, who then announces, will be the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. So whatever we have in whatever thousands of polling stations will come to her or come to him to declare. But then you know everything. If that vigilance, and to quote the former chairman, Dr. Afarijan, he said, look, he participated in the an observer status in the election in Malawi. And judges, teachers, lecturers, lawyers, educated public servants were the polling agents.
Yeah.
You see? So you can have the most credible system if at a polling station a 2-year-old boy comes with Peter, your stolen or fabricated ballot, your voter ID, and he goes through and he's checked as a legitimate voter, and he takes the thing and thumbprints. You cannot decipher a 2-year-old thumbprint from a 18-year-old thumbprint. The fellow has voted.
That's right.
But where vigilance is maintained, nobody, given the system that we have. Perhaps contentious issues may come up about ROPAL and other things that it's not a subject for discussion for now. So that will be my commentary on this matter.
Okay.
But going forward, I think perhaps it's about time that we really placed the constitution that we have. If practitioners have made a good document not worthwhile, then we need to visit it. And this matter will come up when we look at the education.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Nino Ndowuna. Let me come to you, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., Managing Editor of the Insight newspaper, for your comments on the first topic for discussion, which has to do with the appointment of Madame Jean Mensah as the new EC boss.
Well, this week, something very interesting is happening. I mean, it started on Monday. You take in a newspaper and you find some headline. Elections are won at the polling station. You tune into radio, then politicians from NDC and MPP and all, everybody is repeating that mantra. Elections are won at the polling station. What does that mean? Elections are won at the polling station. What does that mean? Does that mean that electoral commissioners don't matter? Does that mean that the credibility of the electoral commission is not important? Does that mean that you cannot have commissioners who are biased and whose conduct can mar elections and so on? Does that mean that? Yes, let us all admit that elections are won at the polling stations. But the polling stations don't print ballot papers. The polling stations do not transport election materials. The polling stations are not involved in making procurement decisions. The polling stations cannot disqualify candidates and so on. You understand? So this mantra, which is being repeated over and over again, as a means of justifying this outrage, is again my difficulty. But it doesn't make sense at all. You understand? It doesn't make sense at all. Elections, and today I think is the subject of editorial in the Ghanaian Times. No, it's not today. I mean earlier. Elections are won at the polling station. It doesn't mean anything. You understand? So we should stop repeating that. The credibility of the Electoral Commission is important now and will forever be important. People who occupy positions in the EC ought to be qualified. And for commissioners, one of the qualifications is their apparent neutrality. It's an important qualification. Look, if President John Dramani Mahama had appointed Mr. Asidu Nketia as the electoral commissioner, as an electoral commissioner, what would have been the public reaction? What would have been the public reaction? Could President Mahama have appointed Koko Anidoho as the electoral commissioner, or Kofi Adams as the electoral commissioner? So if you answer that question, it will tell you, your own answer will tell you that a certain qualification is important in making those appointments. So we should stop this useless mantra of elections are won at the polling stations. It simply doesn't make any sense. Now, listen. This morning, I've read from one of the newspapers a suggestion which is being made by Honorable Che Mensah Bonsu. This morning, in the papers, I'll look for it and I'll read it. Honorable Che Mensah Bonsu is saying that we should design a new system for appointing electoral commissioners, and that in that system, it is here. It's in Ghanaian Times, page 10. Ghanaian Times, page 10 of today. It has a beautiful photograph of Honorable Che Mensah Bonsu. And listen, Majority Leader Osei Che Mensah Bonsu has proposed an amendment of the Constitution for the appointment of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission to be approved by 2/3 of members of Parliament, 2/3. He explained that it would ensure the President consulted broadly and got a buy-in from other political parties in the appointment of the chairperson. Mr. Che Mensah Bonsu defended President Nana Akufo-Addo's decision not to consult widely before appointing the new EC boss, since the law allowed for it. You understand? Now, this is a very, very, very important development in this debate. I find this a very important element in the debate, because this same suggestion was made by President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo before the elections. When President John Dramani Mahama was going to appoint the chairperson of the commission, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo said that, look, the President is clothed with all the legal authority to appoint the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. But given the very sensitive nature of her job, it's important to consult broadly, and that even after the consultation, whoever is selected needed to be placed before Parliament for 2/3 majority. You understand? It is the same suggestion which has been repeated in the Ghanaian Times of today by Che Mensah Bonsu. Now, for me, my worry is that the arguments being made today are not substantially different from the argument that the New Patriotic Party made in opposition, and indeed is still making through Chairman Sabusu. You understand? So how come it's different if the president did not know this? But this is his own advice. How come that the president is not able to use his own advice? How come? And it's most baffling, you understand? Now, all kinds of issues have been raised on this platform and many other platforms about the propriety of the impeachment of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, her dismissal, and the dismissal of 2 others. Some of these matters are before court, and I restrain myself from commenting on them. Indeed, one of the issues has to do with whether or not even Article 146 applies to commissioners of the Electoral Commission. These are all legal matters which will be fought in future, and so on. I would not go there. But for me, what is important is even whether or not Article 146 was followed. Because Article 146 insists that there ought to be a petition to the president. The paper which went to the presidency, which was referred to the Chief Justice to establish a prima facie case, does that paper qualify as a petition? That's a major issue. That paper, because it is not every paper which is a petition. So that paper which went to the presidency, does that qualify as a petition? That's an important matter which will be determined. So I won't go there. I won't give an answer, but it's a very important issue. Now, the commissioners were nominated, and I've been observing the public reaction very quietly. And I must say in all honesty that I'm disappointed in many of our leaders, especially some of the leaders from the opposition political parties. I'm highly disappointed in them. Why do I say this? Today, if you ask me what the position of the National Democratic Congress is, I don't know. Because the General Secretary of the party actually issues a statement stating what should have been the position of the National Democratic Congress. A couple of days later, the minority leader, who is also a prominent leader of the National Democratic Congress, makes a counter statement. Then enters Alban Bagwin, aspiring presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress, and he makes a different statement. So what is the position of the NDC? What happens to the principle of democratic centralism if it is applied there? I don't know. Because there can be differences and so on. But those differences need to be ironed out using party procedures in order for the party to arrive at a common position, which then is the position of the party and which position everybody must accept. And, so something is going wrong in the NDC. The NDC clearly doesn't have a position that everybody can rally around. You understand? Now, there's something else. I've been listening to many of the NDC communicators, and sometimes when I listen to them, I have to be careful all the time, so I don't say things in a certain way. But when I listen to them, I get so disappointed. Almost all of them, they go and sit on radio, say the appointment is irregular. Some even say that it is unlawful. Some say that, look, it will push Ghana into danger and so on. And then they say, anyway, it doesn't matter who is at the Electoral Commission. Anybody can be there. We will win the next election. If it doesn't matter, why raise it? If who becomes the chair of the Electoral Commission is not an important issue, it will not affect the outcome of the elections and so on. You can win and so on. Why raise it? So they attempt to mobilize their own supporters and members, and then they demobilize them at the same time. Something is wrong. will the appointment and the mode of appointment create a problem for us or not? If it will create a problem for us, let's move in and solve the problem. Because you cannot in one breath be saying that it will create a problem and then other breath be saying that it will not create a problem. It's okay. Why? Basic communication skills. If the parties cannot teach their important communicators basic communication skills, they should forget it. Because you convince people through your communication, mechanism and so on. That's how you convince people. But if your communicators are speaking at both sides of their mouth, they will make no impact, they will not be able to mobilize anybody, and they will not be able to explain anything. You understand? So I've been listening to them this week, and I'm very, very deeply worried. They can take any position. The NDC can decide that Madame Jane Mensah is the most qualified person in Ghana to become chairperson of the Electoral Commission. That is the NDC's decision. Understand? The rest of us can also decide the way we want. But when the NDC, the largest, the leading opposition party, is talking to us, through both sides of their mouth, it is good, oh, it is not good, it is important, oh, it is not important, and so on. What does that do? Sickening. You understand? Really sickening. The other things that I will say later, I won't say now. I'll tell you later. I'll say later. You understand? But it's sickening. Now, be that as it may, the president himself, current president, insisted that the appointment of the commissioner must be based on broad consultations. Now, after the appointment was made and the issue of lack of consultations was raised, an official from the Flagstaff House then came and said, oh, this nomination was done with broad consultation, but we did not consult the political parties. I mean, how can you do broad not narrow, broad, do broad consultations on the appointment of electoral commissioners and not consult political parties? Yeah. How broad then is it? Because they are the key stakeholders. Key. So you can do broad consultations without the political parties. I don't understand it. I mean, very strange things are happening. Very strange things are happening. Then there's the issue of the qualification of the persons who were appointed. Now, I insist that if it is established that anybody displays his party identity publicly and so on, that person is disqualified from becoming a commissioner of this commission. Mm-hmm. You understand?
Yes.
Outright disqualification. I haven't seen it, but I've heard many people say that one of the, I don't know whether he's nominated or appointed, because I read the newspapers carefully yesterday. Some of the newspapers created the impression that all four persons had been approved by the Council of State. When I read the stories very carefully, only Jane Mensah appeared to have been approved by the Council of State. And if you take yesterday's papers and read them, you will find this error or this lack of clarity and so on. You understand? So sometimes I'm not so sure whether I should use appointed or nominated. You understand? But let me use nominated and so on. I've heard on radio people arguing vehemently that this Dr. Bosman from the University of Ghana had made statements publicly. In fact, I understand that there's a program on TV3 called New Day or New Dawn, on which he has been featuring regularly on Saturdays and has been making statements which should disqualify him as a commissioner. So I was hoping that somebody would go and take the tapes and make it public. As at now, Budi. Is that to suggest that the tapes are not available? And if there's no evidence, why do you push that line when there's no evidence? If there's evidence, make it public, so that the public can be properly informed. Because if you played one tape in which his sympathy for NPP was well established and so on, that's the end of the matter. But nobody is providing that evidence. Now, if you can't provide the evidence, why do you even say it in public? Mas, I hope you understand what I'm saying. For political parties, and we are not talking about other parties, we are talking about the National Democratic Congress. Right now, the largest and most resourced opposition party in the country. So if they can't do it, who is going to do it? You understand? That's my worry. But you see, as for Madam Jane Mensah, I think the facts are clear. If organizing presidential debates, she can get political parties so angry that they will boycott the organization of presidential debates and so on. How can she be part of organizing national elections? Because organizing national elections is far more sophisticated, far more detailed and so on. So if for just presidential debates, she can get political parties so angry for them to boycott and so on, then there's a problem. Because you see, the IEA operates with certain rules. One of the rules they have operated with for a long time is that only parties which have representation in Parliament should participate in that debate. If that rule is to be applied for the 2020 elections, the IEA cannot even organize a presidential debate. Because the NDC says it will not work with them again, it will not participate. So you are then left with only the MPP which has representation in Parliament. One person cannot debate against himself. One party cannot debate against itself. So even that presidential debate which has been organized over the years, its future is in jeopardy. So you cannot use that same presidential debate organized by the IEA to claim that she's competent and she's done something for which, something meritorious for which she should be made chair of the EC. Because that exercise itself is in jeopardy, it has collapsed. You understand? So there are many problems with Madame Jane Mensah and her appointment and so on. And I do hope that we would see good reason will prevail. When it became clear that there had not been adequate consultations at the level of the president and so on, some of us had hope. Because we thought that the Council of State itself could do that broad consultation. It turns out that the Council of State just acted like the president.
Had they not been ambushed?
Can they be ambushed if they don't allow themselves to be ambushed? You understand? So it turns out that the Council of State itself has acted like the president. Now I have one worry, one most important worry, and is that by twist of fate, if you want to call it that way, others will disagree with me and others will say through orchestration, but I would say that by dint of faith, because you can also argue that it is orchestration, if you come to the conclusion that the paper which was presented to the presidency was actually not a petition in the true sense in the true definition of a petition, and if you come to consider the fact that one of the petitioners died before the petition was uttered and so on, you may reasonably make the argument that it was orchestration, but I don't want to go there. I want to insist that by dint of faith, by December 7th, 2020, the sitting president, who most likely will be a contestant in the election, will appoint all 7 members of the Electoral Commission without broad consultation. The broad consultation that he himself says it is imperative. The broad consultation that Chairman Sabonsu insists should be done would not be done by December 7, 2020. The sitting president would appoint all 7 commissioners. What does that say about the future of our elections in this country? What does that say? And bear in mind that in many countries around the world, the declaration of election results or election outcomes and so on have led to war. Yeah. They've led to war and destruction. La Côte d'Ivoire. I hope we have not forgotten La Côte d'Ivoire. What was the main problem in La Côte d'Ivoire? Whether to recount the ballots or not led to war. Gbagbo's position was that, look, yes, I'm ready to accept the election results, but let's recount the ballots so that everybody is clear and so on. Ouattara said, no, we will not recount the ballots, just declare me leader. It led to war. And the atrocities which were committed in La Côte d'Ivoire were horrifying and so on. So we should be very, very careful in this country. We should be exceedingly careful in this country. And that is why leaders, political leaders, especially those in opposition, when they speak, they must be careful what they say. The political leaders who today, for whatever reason, are saying that, oh, how the electoral commissioner is appointed is not important. You win elections at the polling stations and so on. If we go for elections in 2020 and they are cheated, can they come back and tell us that, can they come back and mobilize us? Can they come back and mobilize us? And look, this thing has happened before. I recall in 1991-92, we insisted that we should have an independent electoral commission before the elections. And I recall vividly, Professor Dubois and others came and told us that, oh, we should drop that demand. Because from the way they are seeing things, the numbers of people who are attending their rallies and so on, they will win that election hands down. So they ignored good counsel and went into that election with an electoral commission that had been appointed by the sitting government, fully appointed by the sitting government. After the presidential election, we all saw our smoothness level. Yes, we also have smoothness. They then started rallying people to demonstrate and so on, writing stolen verdicts, boycotting parliamentary elections. It was too late. And those who are refusing to speak out against what appears, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, what appears to be skewed appointments and so on, they should be very careful. Because by the time they have a change of mind and a change of heart, it will be too late. I have some piece of advice for some of my very good friends. You know, Mr. Hassan Ayarga is a very good friend of mine. You know, very, very good friend of mine. And he has taken a certain position on this issue. You understand? I can understand how he has taken that position. I can understand. Because of problems he had with the Electoral Commission chaired by Charlotte Osei, he has taken a certain position. But you see, what he forgets is that he had the same problem with Jean Mensah at the IEA. Yeah. IEA tried to prevent him from participating in the presidential debate on the grounds that he was coughing too much. Yes. You understand? So, it's up to him. He can seek vengeance now. He can seek vengeance now. But by the time he realizes that vengeance is not everything, perhaps it may be far, far too late. And I know others, many others who are taking the same position. You understand? They are looking at Charlotte Osei as a person and taking positions on the basis of their relationships with Charlotte Osei. The issue goes beyond relations of parties and individuals with Charlotte Osei. It goes to the core of the Constitution. It goes to the core of ensuring the credibility or assuring the credibility of the Electoral Commission. In any case, the courts are going to pronounce, and I'm not a magician. I cannot predict what verdict the courts will come out with. But just in case the courts came out and upheld the petitions which had been filed by people like Kukuba Akun and that lady Fafa, Ninyanato, and so on, what then will happen? What then will happen? In any case, these people who have been appointed now are going to start work now, because there are no more pending issues.
Right.
The demarcation of new regions, the referendum, and so on. All those are important new issues, and I expect that they will start work now. If the appointment is illegal, what will happen? Why can't we tarry a bit? What is the need for the rush and so on? I don't understand this. Of course, the lawyers have explained that you cannot place an injunction on the president from doing his constitutional duty. The lawyers have explained that. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm bound to accept that you cannot place an injunction on the president for doing his constitutional duty. But the president himself ought to evaluate the total situation within which he's exercising his constitutional powers. Even in the courts, the lawyers and judges are taught that the interpretation of the law ought to be within context. So where is that context when it comes to these appointments and so on? It's important that these things are examined, properly. In any case, these people have been appointed, 4 of them. By December 7, 2020, it will be all 7 of them. They themselves, those who have been appointed, Jean Mensah, Bossman, whoever has been appointed, they should sit down and reflect soberly. They can be MPP, they may not be MPP. That's not the issue. At the end of the day, will they be happy if this country plunges into chaos as a result of their being commissioners of the Electoral Commission? They should ask themselves that. Can public perceptions of them or about them lead to a situation where the Electoral Commission can lose credibility, and where this loss of credibility can lead to major problems for our country? It's up to them to make their own decisions. Now, having been so appointed, whether properly or improperly, they have a duty to themselves, a serious duty to themselves, to make sure that they behave above board, that they behave properly, so that we do not plunge this country into confusion and darkness. That is their duty. It is not their duty to me. It is not even a duty to the nation. It's a duty to themselves. They themselves. You understand? They should act in clear conscience and make sure that we do things properly, and that whatever we do in the Electoral Commission would eventually lead to the entrenchment of a democratic order and its expansion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwesi Pratt, Jr., Managing Editor of the Inside newspaper. Now, Prekes Kwame Aristocrat says, when Nanado filed an electoral petition against the EC in 2012, he had the patience to stay off and boycott Mahama's inaugural ceremony and other state functions for 8 solid months, saying he was challenging his legitimacy in court. Thus, he, Nanado, didn't recognize Mahama as president. Today, that 8 months patience has been thrown to the dogs. Some citizens are in court challenging the decision to remove Charlotte Osei from office. That patience to wait for the Supreme Court to determine that the citizens are wrong or not. Nanado didn't recognize that. So much of a human rights activist, he adds. Prince Derek J says, Okay, PDA, this is a bit too strong. I don't think I can take that.
Why? How strong is it? If it's not insulting, if it's not like bellows and so on.
I'm sure he would relook at it. But let's move on to the second topic. It's 11:17 now. Hold on a second. Let me start off with you, Prof. The second issue, you are in the education sector, so obviously government says we are re-looking at the free SHS program and the possibility of having to introduce the shift system and also have some parents who have the means to start paying for the awards.
You see, yesterday or yesterday night, a sister radio station, is it, I wouldn't mention the station, but is it Ghana Connect or whatever, and I got a full insight because the program featured a student, a potential SHS1 student, a parent, a technocrat, one Dr. Ama from University of Education, Winneba, and then one fellow whose name I couldn't get, speaking as a spokesperson of the Ministry of Education, discussed this matter. And one striking issue was when the host asked the spokesperson, and his response meant that he was inclined to the government. He might be a special assistant or whatever he was or he is. They said, but you say you started this consultation or stakeholder involvement 5 months ago, but it was just last Sunday that you called the media and you informed the rest of Ghanaians. So then the system started, the free SHS started just a year, barely a year ago. But I said, you were saying you will run this system from 2012. So the statistics, you have the data. What did you envisage? He said, oh, he persistently kept on rebuffing the question. We started the SHS, the free SHS, barely a year ago. Then the Dr. Ama, maybe somebody also who worked on the whole arrangement, now enunciated the details of the new academic calendar. That students will go to school. Well, if you are in track A for 41 days, then the track B, you come home, then track B will go to school for 81 days, and then there will be a moment when track A and track B will meet, and we are going to recruit 8,000 teachers. And then the issue came, a parent said, but when did you wish to tell us? Oh, we have consulted, we were holding key stakeholders. So who are the key stakeholders? The religious buildings, the mission schools, and so then in the course of the week, I went through the net, and Professor Ade said, if those who don't have any alternative, so shut up. You see, so the scenario now, the scenario is not aging. The scenario then will tell you the dangers that we face as a country. And you know, I've never minced words when it comes to the absolute dishonesty and the tragic situation we have in Africa or in this country with the role of intellectuals, some of them perhaps. So here is a technocrat, and now giving these details about this structure. Then when they ask him, other countries have been practicing it with success. He didn't mention the countries, but just this morning, reading from the ministry's statement, they said Australia, Costa Rica, Japan, Kenya, US, and they even went on to zero in on California, where over 300,000 students. And you know, whenever issues come up, if I digress a bit on increases in petroleum prices, I mean, we've all taken our stand, and even governments, including both NDC, always came up to say, oh, but even in the US and Australia, our petrol is selling cheaper. And we used to tell people, if you take $20, which is just less than 100 cedis, in the US today, you fill your tank.
Sure.
For 15 gallons. That same amount cannot get you 5 gallons in Ghana, notwithstanding even the greater earning capacity of any average American worker. So that is intellectual dishonesty, and intellectuals for you. Now, reading through, they said 472,730 students will be expected to enroll in SHS. And there will be a gap of 181,993. For which reason, Category A and Category B schools, so which are the Category A? Maybe Legon Presec, Wesley Girls, Holy Child, Odogono, Achimota, and the Category B. They will be running this tracking system. And people are always quick in pointing to semester. The universities are there, we are there. Globally, in the 52-week calendar year, students everywhere are supposed to be in school for 32 weeks. Whether semester of 16 weeks, or the trimester of 10 weeks for the first trimester, and then 11. Then in between, the remaining 22 weeks will take care of the holidays. So if you have a system, and students go from academic year, it used to be in the 80s, January to December. Now it is the usual August, September, October to the following June. So if you have this double tracking system, which students are going within a 3-year period of SHS, 52 weeks times 2, 32 weeks times 3, times 32 weeks times 3, will the students be in school for 4 years? And when will they write their exams? Because the WASI is West Africa, Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Nigeria. So you can't alter the schedule. Or perhaps then you want to go through Nigeria where you have another examination system that will be the basis for selecting students into the university. You see, my first reaction is the question I ask, is that where our governance has brought us? Or the practitioners are caught up with their own bloated impression about governance? And so listening to the Ministry of Education official, then I was in the car and I was talking to myself in anger. But I said, perhaps it's a good opportunity to get insight for today's discussion. And the guy looked irritatingly pathetic. Because to him, the stakeholders are the reverend ministers and the mission people and then the Professor Des and others. And you are talking about a commodity, with due respect, human beings whose developmental growth and developmental sequence cannot be reversed. I'm an agriculturist. If you plan a research and it is about cropping and you don't get good weather, you can try it again. You can even water. Yeah. But for human beings, so a child goes to school in September for 41 weeks, 5 weeks, and comes home to sit down for 81 days. 81 days will be almost about 11 weeks. A 13, 14, 15-year-old child, and a technocrat is telling us that this is done in Japan. I live in Canada, and somebody was saying that you don't know their system. In Canada, they say a student does not have to walk more than 2 blocks to go to school. And so at the initial level like JHS, you from here to Zongo Junction, there must be a school that any student here will walk. Is that the system you are copying? Our children are already home, and all the institutions are infested with bed bugs, and they are going to fumigate. And talking through, you didn't hear anything at all. And I've read a story about the state or pressure that will be put on infrastructure. But by the way, who are the stakeholders? The old boys who are contributing their salaries to support their schools, we the PTAs. And the ministry official, a technocrat, and government wants to tell us that they've consulted everybody. So a condescending, paternalistic approach in governance is that they say this is a system, and Peter, your son or daughter, mine, Wilson, Comrade Mutala, will go to school in September, subject to what a paternalistic individual thinks is good for us. And then somebody phone or one of the students, but a parent, he said, but the statistics are there for you to know the number of schools and children in JHS even from class 1, JHS 1. So you should know that by the sequence, they will all go to SHS 1 because they cannot leave their education and then say they are starting life at the age of 13, 14, and 15. So from 2012, you didn't go.
Because the records are there.
The records are there. And you know that we have a boarding system. So if you know we have a boarding system, then you know the pressures that are placed on infrastructure. And visit even any of the endowed schools like Presec, etc. And just take a walk and you can see the deterioration. And last year in this studio, I even said that, look, I will lead a crusade to be sympathetic to the president if the president will only just do what President Kufuor did. When a German ambassador paid the courtesy call to bid farewell, then off track he said, oh, when you are on the platform, it's like you are high. You say everything, but having come to sit here and looking at the resources available and the challenges, you can really come to terms. And he won the sympathy of everybody. And I said, President Kufuor can do the same. And because this is one area where it's human beings and we will be sympathetic. Then you say, roll on. And you know what somebody phoned on the course of the week when this matter came up? Somebody on the sister radio said, he said, so a bank manager, a university lecturer, Bank of Ghana director will take his or her child to school and eat free. And I know parents whose children are going to day school, they give them trotro money and feeding money every day. What system is this? Go to school and go to the store and collect a uniform and everything under a system. And when people were saying, where is the policy framework? They say, hey, go ahead. And so this official of the Ministry of Education, what the hell does he think he's talking about? What the hell do you think you're talking about? You didn't know if you visit, go to a PTA meeting and listen to the lamentation of headmistress, headmaster, and how PTA is even ready to contribute. They say, hey, Ministry of Education says you can't go beyond this. And I have colleagues who are old boys, Presec. They say every year, every month, they contribute 50 cedis to support the school. They have to go to the school to change, mosquito nettings and provide bulbs. And that's not an exception. Everywhere PTAs are contributing, old boys and old girls. So who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are not the Professor Dice and others. And he is running a private school. Will he do the double tracking? And if he says we should shut up, we have. Look, you say grade A, take Odogono, take Presec, take WAS, in Accra, Achimota. They have an infrastructure and administrative structure. What stops you from duplicating if you don't want to continue with Mohammed's day school concept? Expand physical facilities, and if you have the resources, you can put up these buildings within a year. But you say this try and error system will run for 7 years. 7 years. And you are citing Japan and others. What is the basis? Now, when you read the news now, you say that it will need about $1.3 billion to run the system, and that the money even is not available. So that usually the paperwork had been done, and that shows a breakdown in terms of infrastructure, teachers, etc. And somebody asked a question: if you take any secondary school, say Holy Child, the teachers are there, so they vacate, and then another the track B or Libby the Shani people or the afternoon batch will come. The teachers who are there, the limited accommodation facility, they will vacate. So the new student teachers that you are going to recruit, where will they stay? So all of a sudden we have teachers who are employable. You say 8,800 teachers are going to be recruited. Why are we where we are? It's an admission of failure. And by the way, by 2019, 2020, these beginners are supposed to come to the universities. And we are there. We knew when the former system, the old system or this current system of junior high started in 1987. And people argue that why wouldn't you start with class 1? Then have 6 years to plan for the JHS because it was supposed to be vocational oriented also. Build workshops, get the equipment, etc. They say no, from class 6, going to from 1 of old in our time, they went to JHS 1. And the problems that people foresaw are still plaguing the system. And in 1995, they came to the university, the pioneers. And we're inundated with increase in intake, and up to now, come to University of Ghana, go to KNUST and go everywhere. Funding gap, lack of infrastructure, still with us, laboratory space. And so in 2 years' time, they are coming to the tertiary level. And when they even finish, where will be the job?
Anyway, thank you.
You understand?
Yeah.
So maybe to allow others to make a contribution, I think it's not too late, and perhaps I'm buoyed by what Ken Oforiatta indicated. If that provides a window of opportunity or a realization that this system cannot go on the way it is going, then that's a ray of hope. Because according to the news bulletin, he said, when I can pay for 10 students, I should drive my car and take my child to Achimota and then go off and let the system take care of such an individual. That is an admission that this system was not thought through. And when it comes to dealing with human beings, for goodness sake, they are not guinea pigs. And we are all, every parent is a major stakeholder in this. It's not about Zongo ministry that is not developing any Zongo anyway. It's not about railway that is supposed to get a modern railway and is only developing the old colonial 1916 type of railway system from Accra to Nsawam. That is not what we are talking about. From Sekendi to Takwa, that's not what we are talking about. It's about human beings, and for goodness sake, we cannot experiment with the fate of human beings.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Ninoy Douna, for that submission. Let me come to you, Comrade Mutala.
Well, I think the Prof has said a lot, and I'm just going to...
You have 10 minutes.
A bit brief on,
Sorry for taking my time.
On the matter. No, Prof, I wish I could give you all my
you
time
are in the education sector, so
to talk about. And I, first and foremost, my understanding of the way the system runs in any educational institution at any level, also you take into consideration the brain capacity of the pupils or the students. The reason why kids at the kindergarten, they close earlier, if you like, than those who are in the upper primaries is because of their brain capacity.
Exactly.
That the capacity of the brain determines the quantity of teaching, if I can describe it that way, that is introduced to the brain each day, each week and each month. And when I was at the teacher training college, methodology of teaching, those things were things that were emphasized strongly. So it is not out of nothing that at the GHS and the SSS and primary school, they ran 3 terms. The reason is that you can't impact knowledge inside brains continuously for 4 months. Like the universities, we go for a semester, you are taught for 4 months continuously.
Even the 13 weeks.
13 weeks. I have listened to some funny arguments that is made by NPP communicators. I was with a deputy minister on Good Morning Ghana last week, and he said, he went and talked about tabula rasa of Sigmund Freud. And I said, tabula rasa is not talking about capacity of the brains, but what it means is that every child's brain is like a slate, nothing is on it. So whatever you put there is what they absorb. It doesn't mean that the brain is endless, that you can put anything there. So if you have a system that is run such that depending on the information you give or the kind of teaching you give to the child, they should be in school for a first term, they have a break, refreshing the brains, engage in other extracurricular activities, and then they come back. That's why they say work without a play, make Jack a dull boy. All work without play, make Jack a dull boy. Now they come back for second term, and then something is impacted in them, they break. The purposes for such is to let the brain relax so that they can absorb more. But when you get to tertiary institutions, then you are supposed to run a semester base. In fact, even if you take UDS where they run trimester, you are looking at the impact of the information they get because they have community services. So you break, you engage in that community because the community service is also part of the learning. Exactly. So it is not out of nothing that you have a system. And I asked them, now what then happens if the kids are going to be home for 4 months? What happens? Because that is what they are telling us. They are going to be home for 4 months. Now 4 months, what are they going to be engaged in? There are families that are working families. The father and the mother all go to work. The child is supposed to be home for 4 months. Now, even if you want to have other teaching extra classes, which facilities are they going to be using? Because you are citing inability of having infrastructure in place or adequate infrastructure, for which reason
you are introducing this not well taught program. Now, they have cited that Kenya, let's forget of Japan and other, for me, is the most absurd even example to give. Their systems are completely different from ours. Their kind of teaching is completely different. If you want to make such comparison, take the syllabuses of those countries. What kind of things that they are learning. In fact, right from primary school, JHS if you like, you choose your courses that you do. In our primary schools and JSS, we run everything. You go to the SSS, depending on what course you do, there are core subjects that you do. Exactly. So why would you make such comparison? They said Kenya. In fact, thank God that they interviewed an educationist in Kenya and said, look, that is not true. Our system is completely different from the system they are talking about. All the countries that they have cited as examples, and remember, these examples were given by the Minister for Education. Now, why would you use kids as green pigs? And Prof captured it very well, that there is no any reverse. Once you destroy the lives, the educational life of those kids, it's gone forever. I want to challenge the president. He has grandchildren. He should take one of his grandchildren and put him in one of these systems. I want to challenge or JSS, good. I want to challenge, at least you would have had some family, if you like, nieces and nephews who would. Exactly. They should put them in. I am challenging the ministers, some of whom I know. They have kids who are schooling, if you like, in first class school. Some of them are not in the country. They should bring their children there. Look, I sit here today. I attended the Saito school, most of us. And I know the consequences they face, because you are easily able to juxtapose the kinds of things you learned and the kinds of things, the opportunities that are available for your kids. Then you ask yourself that if we had those opportunities, what would have been our state? Now, why would you want to use kids as green pigs in a laboratory? Or guinea pigs in a laboratory? Why would you want to subject people's kids in a policy, a program that is not tested anywhere? Because when you ask them, they tell you that no, it's a hybrid. That is what they are telling us. When they gave the example of Kenya and Japan and others, then you push them to say, no, it's a hybrid. So if you ask someone in Kenya, the person will tell you that that is not the way we're going to. And I listened to the Deputy Minister for Information, and for Education. And the Deputy Minister, when they pointed out to him on joy, that we have interviewed an educationist in Kenya, and they said their system is different from yours. And you know what he said? He said, yes, it's true. When you ask someone in Kenya about our system, he will tell you that it's different because ours is the hybrid. So what it means is that we're introducing a completely new system. Because if the Kenyan says it's not, and you, a deputy minister, say yes, they will say it's not because ours is different because it's a hybrid. It means that you are blending the Kenyan, the Australia, the Japan, and other systems. So that is a completely new system. Now, if you want to introduce a new system, wouldn't it be appropriate for you to pilot it? Why not pilot that system to see what will happen? My understanding of education and policies of education has to do with the collaboration, consultation, broad base. The Ghana National NAT and all the institutions and organizations that are involved in teaching and others, they haven't been consulted. There is an NGO, a civil society group, which Radio Gold interviewed, one Kofi Asari. And he said they have conducted a research, I think impact assessment of the free SHS. Now, per government definition of free SHS, they are going to provide books and textbooks, exercise books for all students. They are supposed to provide 9 exercise books for every single student in the SSS per the program. That apart from Greater Accra, all the other 9 regions, government could not provide the 9 books meant for peoples. In fact, he said in some regions, only 2 exercise books are provided. So, and he said, it is not about running a shift or a semester system. If you run a shift or a semester system, and the materials that the teachers would use to impact the knowledge are not available, you have done nothing. You have done nothing. If a student who is given 2 exercise books to be engaged in exercises, and he's supposed to use the 2 books for 9 subjects, 9. So it doesn't matter whether a semester or a trimester program you run. What matters is the provision of those facilities. And he said also that if the argument is being made that yes, that will lead to decongestion and lower numbers. And I listened to Professor Adai, and I was shocked that he said, oh, you see, the numbers, teachers are teaching about 70, 80 students in class. With this system, teachers will have lesser numbers to teach in class. Now, lesser numbers wouldn't solve the problem of inadequate teaching and learning materials. So you can have even only 5 people in class. When they don't have the teaching materials that they need adequately to learn, you would have done nothing. My understanding of access is not just free go. Access in its true meaning means access to quality education. Another point I would want to make on this and conclude. Now you have a government that is desperately looking at fulfilling a very terrible, campaign promise. Now that government says that we are restoring teacher trainee allowances. We are restoring nursing trainee allowances. And because they are restoring teacher trainee allowances, they have given the schools quota. Okay, Tamale Secondary School or Presec or Wesley Girls don't take teacher training colleges. Accra teacher training college, Tamale teacher training college. Okay, you have the capacity to admit 500 students for this academic year. But if you admit 500 students, we can't pay the allowances. So admit 200 students. So what it means is that instead of admitting 500 students, they would have admitted 200 students. And Prof, you know the danger. What it means is that in fulfilling this useless campaign promise, we are denying this country the services of trained teachers. So, and I can tell you, if this thing continues, in the next 5-6 years, we'll go back to people-teacher syndrome. Let me give you this classical example, and that is happening currently at Kolebu. Minister of Health, and Kolebu, if they are listening, they can come and shame me. Minister of Health and ask Kolebu, the nursing training college at Kolebu, that we don't have money to give you this year. Generate money internally to run the school this year. You know what they have done? Over 7,000 students bought the forms for Kolebu Nursing Training College and applied. Now what Kolebu is doing is that they have invited all the over 7,000 students for interview. When they know they are taking only 190. Listen to the shocker. Anybody who is invited to be interviewed, you pay 100 Ghana cedis without even a receipt. Going on currently, the vetting in interviews are going on. That is unethical. That is criminal. Because you are taking only 190. Over 7,000 students purchase your forms. You've invited all of them to come for interview. You know the reason why they are inviting all of them? They are inviting all of them so that they can get the 100 Ghana cedis taken from each of the over 7,000 they have invited for the interview. Wow. Now, take the Ghana Midwifery and Nurses Council. When they had their annual congress in 2017, Kufuri 24th specifically, Prof, their communique was that we had a deficit of 38,000 nurses. Now, take the admission into nursing training colleges 2016, juxtapose it with 2017 under this government. There was a reduction by 1,600. Now, just look at Kolebu. Last year, they took 250 students into the nursing training college last year. This year, they've asked them to take 190. So, at the end of the day, in an attempt to fulfill a campaign promise, they are denying this country the human resource base that will help in health delivery and in education. And that is extremely dangerous. Shockingly, technocrats like Professor Adai and Co., who should be looking beyond their political interests and whatever interests, look at what would happen to education in this country. They tend to be joining the wagon of trying to destroy the young people of this country. And I weep for Mother Ghana. I weep for these young people, particularly those of us who went through the Sato schools. It is extremely shocking that government is chattering this dangerous part.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mutala. Emma, you have 10 minutes.
That's okay, Peter. You know, issue of education is so important in any developing country that we did not play with it. If you want to determine the future of any economy, just look at the current educational system. And that is why I have advocated on many platforms that when it comes to education, we should try our very possible best not to allow typical political actors to determine what should be done. You remember Kufuor came in and changed the system to 4 years.
Yes.
Atamus came and changed it to 3 years. We as a nation have not even assessed whether there was positive or negative impact that these changes made on our younger brothers and sons and daughters who attended that period. We haven't done that. If you want to mess up the future of any economy, all you have to do is to touch that economy's education, the content and all that. And so anytime there's a new government and then we see the unusual touching of the educational system, I get so worried and I get so sad, because we are playing with the future of individuals. We are playing with the future of families. We are playing with the future of the destiny of our country. And what is this shift system all supposed to do, and what is it all about? Prof has said most of it all, but for me, it is all about the fight between quality and quantity. That is what it's all about. I have heard the Minister of Education saying that, and that has been the strongest reason for us going into this shift system, that they want to sugarcoat it and call it what? Semester or what have you.
Dual tracking system.
Dual tracking system. It's all about shift system. It's just all about, it's just about those of us who attended an Opani area school. No? That is all about it. That is exactly what it means, you know. And his argument is that we are doing this to take care of the gap, and that in the coming term, academic year, that's September, we are going to have a gap. We are going to have a particular number of students who may not get the opportunity to go to school or get admission. And for that matter, we want to, have this shift system so we can take care of them. So it is all about enrollment. It's about quantity. It is not about quality. We are looking at it. Now, he goes further to say that, yes, and this is the minister himself, he admits that there's going to, because of the shift system that they want to introduce, it is going to affect the number of hours, that the students will be having with the teachers. And because of that, the Ministry of Education is creating what we call the remedial weekend school. So the Saturdays will be designated for that. And the Saturday school will take care purely of the English and the maths. This is what the minister says. All right? Now, he goes further again to indicate an amount of money that is going to be allocated to take care or to cushion this Saturday remedial school. And he's talking of 323 million. And that's what we are going to use to cushion it. So the minister himself admits that we are trading off quality. And in trying to help, he says that his ministry is going to make sure that we have a Saturday weekend school to take care of English and maths as a form of supplementary teaching for the students. Into me call from Monday to Friday, and then Saturday I haven't even written exams to fail, but I'm going to attend a remedial school.
Is that also going to be in shift system? Or
that he didn't go into details, but that is what's going to happen. So the bottom line is that we are going to trade off quality and we are going to concentrate on quantity. And I ask myself, how sustainable is this? Yes, people want to argue, and that is it. Any person who is of a school-going age must not be denied. I agree to that. Must not be denied education. I agree to that. Every one of us needs to be educated. But you see, proper planning matters so much. Because if you decide to do what you think is right without planning, you will end up, yes, temporarily you may be able to stable the situation, but you will end up creating a bigger problem after it. Have we thought of, yes, everyone goes to school, the rate of unemployment that we are going to have at the end of the day? We finish secondary school, everyone goes to secondary school. What happens to the tertiary institution? We haven't thought of that. And so it is not for fun when the framers of our constitution dwelt on the word progressive. They could have said instantly, by the coming of into force of our 92 constitution, right from 92, every person should go to school instantly. But they said it should be progressively, because there are some amenities and some few things that need to be put in place, which we have not been able to do that. All right, we've not been able to do that. But Peter, when people say that, yes, everyone of good school-going age should be given, so everyone should come on board, then I ask myself, if that is the argument, then it is also important to say that every Ghanaian citizen must have access to quality health system. And so, as long as I am in this country, I should be able to access a clinic. I should be able to access a hospital. Is that what is happening in this country? No. Then we should also say that everyone in this country should have access to a good housing system. Is that what we are having in this country? No. Then we should also be able to say that everyone in this country should be able to have access to quality water, or should even be able to have access to pipe water. Is that what we have in this country? No. We should say that, look, okay, we know that the normal or the average person is supposed to have a 3 square meal a day. So if we want everyone to go to school, because everyone who is of school going age should instantly be in school without we putting the proper checks, then everyone who graduates and anyone who legally is of age to engage in legal work, government should ensure that everyone is working. We shouldn't have unemployment in this country. Right. So these are the issues that we should be looking at. And as I said, it hurts me that we are playing with the future of our generation, the next generation. Now, if we are talking of enrollment, then obviously we are saying that we don't have much facilities, and that is why we want to go into the shift system. I know of some schools, as part of the schools that were built by the last administration, there are some that are near completion and they have been abandoned. There are a lot across the country that have been abandoned. If we are talking of facilities, instead of us using 132,000 Ghana cedi to go and drill a borehole, one borehole, 132,000 Ghana cedi. Instead of Akufo-Addo's government using 800,000 Ghana cedi to develop one website, can't we use some of these monies to complete the almost completed buildings, school buildings that were started by the past administration, so that we can increase facilities, and then say that instead of some of you going Anopa and then others going Ewiano, some should go into those classrooms? Why can't we do such a thing as a nation? The other thing, and when this by force landing of free SHS started, I heard most of the private schools owners coming out to say that because of the free SHS, their enrollment is down. You go to, and of course I've been to one or two of these private schools, and virtually their classrooms are empty. If we are talking of enrollments, isn't it also possible as a nation we can go for now, temporarily, go into some form of PPP, that is a public-private partnership with, as far as the educational sector is concerned? So that the excesses, exactly, their infrastructure, which is down their waste, we can have some of our members or students going to that place. Because you see, all that we are doing, and for me, that is where my head is. Even with the current educational system that we are running, we all know the caliber of graduates and the caliber of students we are producing, the quality. It is not the best that we all expect. There are a lot of problems. So why do we want to compound it and say that, look, the little quality that we are left with, we want to trade it for quantity? And as long as we are seen putting everyone in the classroom, it means that we've succeeded as a nation or we've succeeded as a government. I don't think this is the best way to go. Let us see, one, if it is all about infrastructure, there are better ways to go about it and not this. Okay. If we are saying that we don't have money to build instantly, that will be a lie. Because Bawumia told us that there's a lot of money in the system. Ekufuado told us that there's a lot of money in the system. And they even told us that we don't even need to go and borrow. There's a lot of money down here. So if we have a lot of money here, then we are expecting the president and the vice presidents to ensure that those monies are put in good use. That those monies are not used to create a website for 800,000 Ghana cedi. Those monies are not used to drill a borehole, one borehole which should average about 10,000 or 20,000. The MPP government says they are using 132,000 cedi to go and drill that borehole. We shouldn't do that.
Let me come to you. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Wilson. The NPP government is trying so hard to be creative in solving the problems emanating from the free SHS program and is deliberately ignoring all the suggestions and cautions posed by the NDC while in government. They, the NPP, should be bold enough to admit that the visionary leadership of John Dramani Mahama and the NDC were right in providing new and more facilities for the second cycle schools. Now, this so-called trimester system they are introducing will only address the situation in the short term. The long-term solution is simply providing more schools, improving the teacher training facilities, and cutting the teacher training allowances for trained teachers. So also subscribe to the SNET student loan scheme. And he says that he is also in the education sector, and that's coming from Kafui Amrago from Taifa. Mr. Pratt.
My brother, this country has a very, very, very serious problem. We have a very serious problem. And I'm most disgusted that we have reduced the attempt to find solutions to educational problems again to a partisan confrontation between the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party. And I would explain. You see, in 2014, BECE registration, 422,946 students registered BECE. In 2015, 1 year later, 440,469 students registered. The next year, the figure jumped up to 461,009. Then in 2017, the figure jumped up to 468,060. Then in 2018, the figure jumped up to 521,710. All these new entrants, what do we do with them? How do we ensure that access to education continues to increase without affecting quality? Or, better still, how do we ensure that access expands and quality improves? This is our challenge. You understand? If you have a situation where access is expanding and quality is falling, we are failing. If you have a situation where quality is improving and access is dropping, we are failing. All the two means, quality and quantity, need to improve. If you can't improve, at least let it remain there. This is how we have to approach this discussion. You know, I listen to some of my friends and they say that, look, whose child should stay at home? That everybody's child should be in school. But see, that's a load of nonsense. Do you know why? Because now, aggregate 36 is the bottom line. So the children who get below aggregate 36, whether it is free or not, they can't go to school. So even now that we have introduced free senior high school, we are excluding some children from going to school. And those of you who have done education, me, I haven't done it, you yourself explains to us that there is something called early developers and late developers and so on. And that this system of exclusion is only because we do not have the infrastructure. Alright? Yeah. That it is the infrastructure deficit which leads to exclusion and so on. So I hope that the government will come to the realization that this is a matter which affects every citizen of this country. It even affects people who have not been born yet, and so on. It's the future of this country that we are discussing. So we should stop the partisan approach and begin to think about what systems we can use in order that we can get quality education. Now, last week, we did a very simple exercise. Selected areas around this country and visited schools, you know. Master, there's a school in the Upper East region. It's in a mud house, thatch roofed. And the mud is peeling off. The school is collapsing. The head teacher is so frightened that he has moved the children to a space under a tree. This is the reality. Now the question arises, should we spend all the resources we have providing free secondary school education and allow these people in the basics, in the bottom line, to continue schooling under trees? There's also a question of morality. This question about whose child should stay at home, whose child should go to primary school under trees, and so on. That's a critical question. Now, you know, all the schools are not the same. You are providing free education at Wesley Girls. And you are providing free education at some other school that I know. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Because some people benefit more than others. Even though it is free education for everybody, those who go to some schools and those who go to Wesley schools don't get the same quality education. And indeed, it is more likely that those who go to Wesley Girls will pass and enter university while the others cannot go. There's a certain measure of discrimination. So what do you do to bring all schools to a certain standard so that the children of people who cannot get access to Wesley Girls and so on can also hope to have a bright future? You understand? I know some argument that people will go and bring up and say that why Wesley Girls is not exclusively for people in a certain class and so on. It is nonsensical. And let me explain. You see, your child who goes to school in Accra answers the same questions as the child of somebody in a rural community without electricity.
One and the same exam.
The same exams. So if your child and that child enter the classroom and they're doing English essay and the topic they're supposed to write on is my favorite television program, The child in the rural community where there's no electricity has failed from the beginning. It is not because the child is dull, is ignorant or something, but the very environment in which the child goes to school will make the person fail. So when you're talking about inequality in education, all of these things are important. You understand? It's important for us to sit down, think through the program, and design a system which will solve the problem of access and solve the problem of quality, and also address the inequalities in our educational system. All these things that are being thrown about and so on, they do not address the issue. In any case, look, my brother, I have a little advice for government. Just a little advice for government. You know, the people who government appears to have engaged to communicate its intentions and so on about education, they certainly cannot convince anybody. Do you know why? The messenger is as important as the message.
Right.
If you go and find somebody, he can be professor or anything, whose academic qualifications are in contention, serious contention, to come and talk about education as an expert, you have lost ab initio from the very beginning. You have lost. You understand? If you go, no, I'm serious.
You are speaking parables.
Oh, I'm speaking the truth. I'm speaking the truth. You understand? If you go and take somebody whose record as an academic, whose record as an academic, let me leave it here. Let me leave it here. Let me leave it here. I don't want to go too far.
So we continue next week.
Anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. This is all time would allow us for today's show. It has been Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. Let me say a very big thank you to my panelists, Emmanuel Wilson, the Director of Elections for the PNC, that's the People's National Convention. Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed is a former Deputy Minister and Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry and a former Member of Parliament as well for the Nanton constituency. Professor Nino Douna is a lecturer at the University of Ghana, Lagos. Kwesi Pratt Jr., Managing Editor of the Insight newspaper, and we looked at the appointment or the nomination of Madame Jean Mensah and 3 others to the Electoral Commission. And of course, we also touched on, as our second topic for today, the intended introduction of the shift system at the senior high school level and matters within the education sector. Let me say happy birthday going out to you, Richard Mumoni of Ultimate Advertising at Laboni. Happy birthday going out to you. And let me say a very big thank you to my producer, Patrick Ashford Boydu, and of course to you at home for sending the message and for doing the listening. God willing, we'll be here again same time next week. But like I said earlier, Apollonia City is giving big, and it's almost too good to be true. Get rewarded with cars or lots of amazing home appliances when you buy a home or plot of land in the Apollonia Mega City Dash promo. A 3-bedroom story at the Oxford gets you a brand new Suzuki Bolumo from Silver Star Auto Limited to tear rubber and to go to work. Any other home also gets top-notch home appliances, but that's not all. You also get lots of quality home appliances by simply buying a service plot of land in Apollonia City. Visit them today at www.apollonia.com.gh/mega- or call 0275 577-577 for more details. You can also send an email to sales@apollonia.com.gh. They say terms and conditions apply. Let me also acknowledge TT Brothers for sponsoring this particular show, and they are the sole importers or producers of Uncle Tea Malt and Tango fruit drinks. They made it possible for this show to be brought to you in the comfort of your homes. My name once again is Peter Bamfo. God willing, we're going to be here same time next week. I'm out of here.